What made you want to become a teacher?
Ooh, man. So that's an interesting story because when I graduated from high school, I thought I wanted to major in psychology.
Hmm.
So the first school I went to was a Church of Christ college up in Arkansas, Harding University in Searcy.
Mm-hmm.
So I get up there and we had to go to chapel every day, and that was all right. But they're always asking for money. It's an expensive school.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there was a guy from my hometown church that taught there. He taught science, and at Harding they're not allowed to teach about evolution, and we had to take New Testament survey, and then I'm in these psychology classes, and man, I couldn't. I'm struggling keeping the chicken guy and Pavlov's dogs,
Mm-hmm.
all of these behavioral specialists straight, and I found I wasn't as interested in it as I thought it would be. So I dropped that. I transferred back home and was at East Texas State, and then was majoring in business and
East Texas State Eagles,
the Lions.
Lions.
Yeah, it's a teacher college.
Mm.
It's in commerce. So I was majoring in business, and if you're not good at math, you shouldn't major in business.
Mm.
And I was skipping class, and it just wasn't. I wasn't interested in it. I wasn't going to school, and
That was my favorite pastime in college. Was
yeah, it was
skipping
skipping
class.
Yeah, I'd go hang out in Greenville at the mall and play at the arcade in the arcade there. And then when the World Cup was coming to the United States, I took a day and went to Fair Park and saw
Oh,
the World
nice.
Cup trophy instead of going to class.
Yeah.
So I flunked out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
So,
And now you're teaching kids.
yeah,
See how that worked out?
yeah. So I was working at UPS, and I got home. So I'm not going to school because I was suspended, scholastic suspension,
Mm-hmm.
and because my GPA was microscopic, and I get home and on the PBS station out of Dallas, KERA, they were showing a documentary about the IRA, the
Mm-hmm.
Irish Republican Army, Sinn Féin, and the whole conflict between Northern Ireland and the British.
Right.
And I was like, man, that's I was intrigued, and I'd always enjoyed history,
Mm-hmm.
and so I watched this documentary 3 times in a row, probably 4, and I got up the next morning, and I drove over to the university. Yeah, I mean you're looking at roughly 3 to 4 generations of young men died in these terrorist. They were terrorist attacks because the IRA would bomb like the London train station.
Mm-hmm.
They'd do car bombings at Heathrow, and within Northern Ireland and Belfast in those neighborhoods, it's the Catholics and the Protestants, and they would march through each other's neighborhoods during important religious holidays. It's like thumbing their nose at them. So it was a constant source of tension there, and it was and Sinn Féin had been labeled as a terrorist group for our country by the United States for years, and the leader of Sinn Féin, justified what they did because of this conflict. And it dates all the way back to when the king got rid of Catholicism and created the Church of England because the Pope wouldn't give any more annulments. And so this is the things I tell my students.
There's
like,
some great history over there.
Yeah, I mean, and there's everything goes back to something.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove to the university and begged to get back in. I was like, I want to major in history. And so
it just clicked right
yeah,
there.
and I was told, well, go get a degree plan. I'll give you a week. And I went to the Department of English, the Department of History, and sat down with Dr. Wade. And we drew up my degree plan. He goes, you want to teach? I said, yes, sir. He goes, you want to coach? I said, yes, sir. He said, go over there and talk to so-and-so in the kinesiology, the physical education department, and get a minor. And I was like, okay. So I walked over there, got that all done, had my degree plan. Best thing I ever did. Because now I had it in paper. And as I'm taking classes, I can mark off what I'm doing. And then I went back to the office, and they let me back in. And I never looked back.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, and I took
Literally.
I would say that back then our history department at the university was was top notch. We had some really good professors. My history of Texas class was amazing. It gave me great appreciation for our state. 20th Century America, Westward Movement of America.
Right.
I wrote a term paper in 20th Century America about the Attica Prison Uprising of 1971 that happened around my birthday. And it brought about the greatest prison reform of that time.
That was New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'd seen a made-for-TV movie about it. And I was like, man, that's pretty interesting. And then here I'm in this class. And then I had Dr. Rudolph, who was one of the hardest teachers I've ever had, but also one of the best teachers. And who lost family in the Holocaust. And he taught, I had him for history of Russia, and I had him for the second part of world history. He was an excellent teacher. I learned how to be a historian from him, how to do research, because he knew every bit of material in the library on any topics that he was talking about. So our special topics course, Hitler Revisited, was basically telling the story of Germany pre-World War I, what Hitler was doing, his youth growing up, the things that shaped him and made him who he was. And then the time period during World War I when he served, he was a courier that took messages from the back line to the front line, and at the end of the war,
somebody needed to do it though.
Yeah, and they had several people doing it, and at the end of the war, he was in a bed.
Now they got somebody behind a computer doing it.
Yeah, and they could just send an email. But he was in a bed at the end of the First War, recovering from the effects of the mustard gas.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so we talked a lot about that, and then he brought in Mike Jacobs, the guy that founded the Holocaust Museum in Dallas. I mean, I never missed class. I mean, my eyeball could be hanging out, and I'm going to school, and was fortunate enough to be able to have a class with my brother, with Dr. Wade. We had a class comparing cultures, Far East Asia, Japan, and the U.S. It was really good. And it's just, French Revolution, Napoleon with Dr. Wade. I just had really good professors that made the classes very interesting, and they were storytellers.
Yeah.
Which makes history
difference.
more fun.
Yeah.
So, and then I grew up playing soccer. So that was the natural segue.
Well, let's go back and get some of your history then. Growing up where? In
Sulphur Springs, Texas. Springs. Yeah. Northeast Texas, halfway between Dallas and Texarkana.
So we were in the same era. I was born in 72. You were born in 70?
71.
71.
Yeah.
I was at the end of 72. And I grew up in Garland, so we were kind of in the same area.
Yeah,
probably had
Garland.
A very similar upbringing.
Yeah.
With riding your bike everywhere, going to the creek.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a creek. There's a dirt road that's not a dirt road anymore that we would drive down, and we'd sneak on this property. This guy had longhorn cows there.
Nice.
And we would sneak along the property. And this will show you the foolishness of youth. So on that creek bed, we'd go down there and we'd harass water moccasins.
Yep.
Smart.
Normal.
Never got bit. Had I known,
I didn't either.
Had I known then what I know now about how water moccasins are curious, and they don't care. They will swim up to you.
Yeah. Like I even went tubing so many times down the Guadalupe or the Comal, and I saw them, but I never got bit by one.
Never. Not a big snake guy. I don't believe in killing all snakes, except for copperheads and water moccasins, because they're
here and there.
Yeah, because they're aggressive. And but yeah, we used to do that, and we'd ride our bikes everywhere, and we would ride behind the bug sprayer, the mosquito guy in town, and
that was weird.
The snow cone, the ice cream man come around, and we played baseball in the backyard, and
go grab a handful of quarters and try to get some.
Yeah, we would have. Looking back on it, our childhood was awesome. We
were the last ones to experience. Well,
I think so.
Gen X.
Yeah,
because after that, computers took over.
We'd go fishing. We weren't really into hunting. We did a lot of fishing. We had a lot of lakes up there, and my dad knew a lot of people in town. We go fishing on their ponds, and just kind of growing up, that's just what I did. I could go fishing and be out there for 2 or 3 hours and not catch anything, and I'm fine. My brother, on the other hand, if we were out fishing, if he didn't catch anything within the first 20 or 30 minutes, he was ready to go.
Yeah.
And so
the only time I ever went fishing was for the beer.
Yeah.
I never caught anything, really.
My
friends would catch stuff, and I'd be like, just going to drink another beer. I'm not catching anything.
Yeah, I would. We didn't do that back then.
I mean, not when I was little.
Yeah,
but it's more of an older.
But I would go fishing with my Uncle Jerry, who's now passed, and just great memories. Growing up in a small town like that, because we're 80 miles from Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could live there now just because I just don't. It's just not for me. I like where I live here because I'm close to New Braunfels and San Antonio. I'm close to Austin. It's nothing against my hometown or the people that live there, because there's great people that live there, and my parents are still there. But looking back, my brother and I had a great childhood. We got to grow up around my grandparents, my mom's mom and dad, and
That's really
and then sometime in like high school, middle school, high school, my dad's mom moved there. So, and then his brothers were living close by. My Uncle Randy and my Uncle Jerry lived in town, and so we had family functions, and then my mom's parents would come over. So it was like a true, Kersey Faulks deal, and we'd cook out, and it was like an every weekend thing.
Were your parents from Sulphur Springs as well?
So my parents are from West Texas. My mom is from my mom is from Hell Center, and my dad is from Plainview.
Okay,
he's a Plainview Bulldog, and she's a Hell Center Owl.
Yeah, my parents were from Midland.
Yeah. There's people that don't know about West Texas or have been out to West Texas. They don't get it. It's a different lifestyle out there. People are hard workers.
Yeah.
They're still the yes sir, no sir people.
Yeah,
they
away
do
from all the nonsense of the big cities too.
And they still do things with handshake.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. That's one thing my granddad always told me. He's like, he goes, protect your word, because a man without his word's not a man.
It's the only thing you've got.
Yeah. So I grew up very fortunate. I had really good, strong men examples in my life. My dad, I never knew his dad because he passed before I was born. But my granddad, my uncles, just good people, and they always set a good example. Great work ethic, the way they treat people.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody in my hometown could say anything negative about my dad, and same thing for my brother. I don't know that I've ever heard a negative word about him, and didn't hear anything negative last week. That's for sure, because he made everybody feel special.
That's good.
Just good stuff.
Did they raise y'all in church up there?
Yeah, we grew up Church of Christ.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Church of Christ.
Is it still the same church?
Yeah, it's still there. I drove by it the other day, and they were having Wednesday night service, and
a little different than our Tuesday night prayer.
Yeah, a lot different. It's a lot different. I don't if I go up there, I don't go in there and visit, so I don't really know how their service is, if it's any different than what it used to be. I just know traditionally, we would go sit down, the youth group sat together, and we'd sing songs, and then on Sunday morning we have communion every Sunday.
Yeah.
My granddad would help prepare the communion the night before and get it all set out, and when he was gone out of town, I filled in for him, and I would take care of it. And then Sunday during service, I would be in the kitchen to clean up the cups and throw them away and get the communion, a little small tray of communion juice and crackers set up for Sunday night. Because Sunday night after church, if you weren't able to make it Sunday morning, you could go in the library and they would do the whole thing.
The stale crackers.
Yeah. The unleavened crackers.
Yeah.
So
the hard bread.
Yeah, and
small. Was it a small church?
I would say League Street was a pretty good size. We had pretty good numbers. Anywhere, I would say on average, we'd probably average around 400, 350 to 600. It just depends. And then during the summer, we had summer youth series. We had a Northeast Texas summer youth series where we'd go around to different towns, like into Mount Pleasant, Winsboro, Paris, places like that, and Lindale, and then that was on Monday nights. And then on Tuesday nights for a couple of years, we would go over to Dallas. And some of my probably best memories of those would be meeting people from like the Rockwall Church of Christ. They're still acquaintances today. But more importantly, being in an auditorium with 700, 800 young people singing a cappella.
Wow.
And even though he may not sing good, she may not sing good, he may not sing good, everybody together, it was pretty powerful. So I remember those things. And, at Vertical when we have those opportunities where the band's not playing, people are just singing.
It gives me chills every time. Every time.
Every single time. It's hard
I have so
not to
many
get
videos
emotional.
on my phone from when that happens, because usually I'm like, oh, here it comes. Or they're going to do it again. And
Yeah.
I'll pull on my,
and
it brings me to tears.
It's not a knock against League Street, but I had some church hurt, and I've never felt anywhere the way I do at Vertical.
Yeah, it's good
with
church.
people. I've never been around a group of people that have been more interested in my relationship with God and just helping me further that relationship and want nothing out of it.
Yeah.
They want no glory. They want no praise.
Right.
Just want a hug and a thank you. Yeah.
And Vertical's gone through growth challenges, over the years, and there's been church hurt with people that have left, and which is understandable. And you're never going to find a perfect church.
No, you're not.
Because there is no perfect
people aren't
church.
perfect. People aren't perfect.
And I think the best thing to do from that is to learn from those lessons as a church body and try not to ever make those mistakes again.
Yeah.
Just like we do as personal responsibility.
Well, I like how transparent everybody is.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we have people in leadership positions that are open and honest. They talk about their past struggles and things that they struggle with.
Right.
And I just, to me, I'll use that as an example of kind of how I'm in my classroom. I don't put myself up here and kids down here. Yeah. If someone has a question and I don't know the answer, well, open up a tab and look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up.
Because
research materials at our fingertips.
And because
before you had to go to the library.
Yeah, as a history teacher, and this gets my mom. I don't worry about dates. I don't really worry about names all that much. To me, it's a story.
Right.
And I was asked a question yesterday about it was something about a date. Well, I'm like, well, look it up, because we were talking about World War One and the start of World War One. So I know we were talking about when the U.S. entered the first war. Coach, when the U.S. entered the first war? I was like, I don't know. Look it up.
It's after the assassination of.
It was the sinking of the ships, the passenger ships, because we were sending aid to the Allies illegally, mind you, on passenger ships, and the Germans had unrestricted submarine warfare, which they stated if we feel like a ship is providing assistance to our enemies, we're going to sink it, and so they were. And I said, well, look it up, which led to a conversation about the number of years after that that the U.S. was involved in conflict around the world, going from then to the short period between the First and Second War, the Second War, Korea, and then Vietnam.
It hadn't stopped since.
No. We had a little bit of rest after Vietnam, but we were still in a Cold War with Russia.
Before we get too far off on that tangent, because I will. When you were growing up as a kid, were you interested in history?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite classes. I will say that I had...
Like the coach would roll in the TV just like this and put a tape in and put a documentary in, and most of the class would go to sleep, but I would be back there. I'd just be watching the whole thing.
I was
really tired.
I had a good teacher my senior year for civics and economics, Coach Bryce. She was our basketball coach. She was an excellent teacher. Oftentimes, I would say that a lot of times some of your best teachers are coaches, and it's not because they're just like these expert teachers that's good at relationship building. But I've had some teachers that were the worksheet, and they sat up there and read their paper and drank their coffee. It's hard to get engaged with that, and we have a little bit of that. Well, we have a lot of that these days, and so I mean, I enjoyed her class, and I had some good teachers. One of the elders at my church, Les Jones, was our chemistry teacher in high school, and so everybody had to have him. And we spent the first 6 weeks doing chemical equations, math. Yeah. So and then
that's
the
what
rest.
I nod off.
But then the rest of the school year,
algebra and chemistry, I passed with a 70.
But then the rest of the school year, we did experiments, like actually hands on. So I ask kids today, like when they're in chemistry, I'm like, "Do y'all do?" Like, no. Coach, did you take chemistry? Everybody had to have it in your junior year. I said, and we went back there and we were combining. We were underneath the vent hoods and we had the gloves, and we were all geared up. and we were back there, combining chemicals and using the burners, and
Right.
it was a very hands-on class. And I said it was difficult, but it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't fun because Mr. Jones was from my church and who taught it and whose kids I knew. It was fun because it was hands-on, and the way he taught it. Mr. Jones, he had a very dry delivery, but he knew his stuff, and he did an excellent job. I really enjoyed that class. I have a handful of people that I've had as teachers or professors that were not history teachers that are kind of in my ranking. One of them was an algebra teacher at East Texas State, Dr. Kaminsky. I struggle in math. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
And I made a D in algebra, but I didn't want a D. I wanted at least a C, so I took him, and he took it upon himself to have a study session once a week. And he just had a way of presenting math that was interesting. He was passionate about it. I don't know how people are passionate about math, but that's them.
My stepson's like that. He's a math whiz.
But he did a great job and I got a high C in the class. I was excited, and Dr. Kaminsky is in the top 5 of my all-time favorite teachers. Math teacher.
Nice. Math was probably what kept me from graduating college. I just couldn't. Every time I go back, it wasn't just that. It was multiple things, but it's like, I have to take this math class again because I dropped it before when I dropped all my other classes.
Yeah.
I have to keep taking this again and again and again. I'm like, oh, I hate math.
Yeah,
I like money math. Money math is good.
Money math's good.
And geometry I'm good at. Angles. That was fine with. But when it came to algebra and calculus, and
man, that's the curse.
The letters belong over here with the words. The numbers belong over here with the numbers. Let's just read these and add these up.
I have students ask me, Coach, can you help me with my algebra? Like, you want to pass? You want to stay eligible?
Yeah.
Now
they got AI to help them with algebra.
Well, exactly. And
I can't imagine ever looking up an algebra problem or trying to figure out an algebra problem by hand again.
I can help a little bit with science, and I can help a little bit with English. And I had a good English teacher in high school, Mr. Tittle. He was our sophomore English class, and in that class we read a lot. We did all the King's Men, and I just really enjoyed his class. He was our tennis coach. He did an excellent job. And I had some good science teachers like Mr. Jones, and then even in college had a really good few. But for me, it's the standard's always been political science and history teachers because they're storytellers. I even like musicians that are more like balladeers. I'm a big Johnny Cash guy, and my brother's a big Merle Haggard guy. Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson, they're storytellers. They're musicians, but they tell stories. They're guys that talk during their song, and then they sing a little bit. It's always been interesting to me.
Yeah, that's why musicians are.
Well, and I enjoy listening to people's stories. I mean, I was talking with my dad last night. He was in Vietnam. He doesn't share a whole lot about his time over there, and takes a little bit to drag it out of him. But he does have some interesting stories, and he's starting to open up a little bit more. And Mark, my brother, got him a hat with the group that he was with in Vietnam, and he wears, and he's starting to show.
It's hard, man. That especially knowing what we know now.
Well, and
about the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and knowing that those men weren't treated fairly when they came back, and the fact that people don't seem to understand that when you're in the military, you follow orders, and there are consequences for not. And regardless of what they did or did not do, or what you think they may have done, or what you may think they didn't do, when they come back, they're Americans, and they deserve some respect because they're doing something you didn't do.
Right.
Now, there's no way I could have been in the military. I have a lot of respect for people that go in and serve, because
me too.
Early mornings until I turn like 50, 47, 50, I'm not good at mornings. I don't like being told what to do. My parents can attest to that.
Being told what to do I would have been gone in a week, I think.
Yeah.
Or I would have been getting my ass
dishonorable
kicked every
discharge.
Yeah. They're like, get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
Before we break him in half. Of course, and I was also like a $140 when I graduated high school. They would have run me through the ringer trying to put weight on me.
Yeah, I would have wanted a basic training like in Stripes, not Full Metal Jacket.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I would have wanted to do. The Full Metal Jacket one,
I have a lot
I'll
of respect
pass.
for those people, though, man.
Yeah,
because
I do
it
too.
Takes it takes a certain kind of person to
Yeah,
be willing to sacrifice your life.
yeah. Well, my
you
cousin
for your
Shane,
country.
he was in the Marine Corps and was light armored
For
infantry,
your
and,
man.
and then a good buddy of mine, Bam Jackson from my hometown, he was in the Marines too, and these guys got to go. Bam spent time in Africa, and Shane spent time over in Asia, and these guys got to see the world while defending our country, and they were involved in. I'm sure they were involved in some things that a lot of Americans don't know about and probably don't need to know about.
Right.
There's
a lot we probably won't ever know.
Well,
we don't want to know.
Yeah. We were talking about
Although
it
I'm
the
kind
other
of in
day.
the club of I want to know it all, because once you start hiding information from people, it gets easier to be corrupt, which we have found out recently with all the uncovering of the
all
corruption.
the uncovering with the money. Yeah.
So, whatever happens in the darkness eventually comes to light, right?
It does.
So,
and it's like we were talking
the
about the
Vietnam
other day, the Men in Black episode, the
Yeah.
show, movie. On any given day, there's a certain number of aliens on the earth, and
yeah.
most
Forget what you saw.
most humans don't know, and they don't need to know because sometimes
We'll mess it up.
Yeah, they mess it up. They're dangerous. Humans are dangerous
Yeah.
people, and to a certain extent we are.
Yeah.
Especially whenever we think this is what's going on, and we find out that's true. I told you, and then people like to go down those rabbit holes, and they lose themselves. I'm not a rabbit hole guy. I mean, I can
be.
I can be.
I can, especially going to bed,
Mm-hmm.
getting that rabbit hole of conspiracy theory stuff or ancient aliens and
My rabbit holes tend to be dog rescues, pit bull videos.
dog rescue
Those,
videos.
I'm sitting there. I'm looking at my two dogs, and I'm seeing the dodo, and then the guy, the Asher House. I'm sitting there watching. They're rescuing these dogs, and if it's a Staffordshire, because I have one, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting in my class. I'm sitting in my room at home, crying because I want them all.
Yeah.
I want all the pitties. Because
Jennifer and I said if we could, we'd buy 100 acres and just rescue all the
Oh,
dogs.
I would. If I win the lottery, I'm gonna have a house built. My
Just have
two dogs will have their own
perimeter
room.
of a dog run.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
100-acre perimeter dog run.
One bedroom will be for Lexi and Anna. They'll have their own bed. That way they won't sleep in my bed anymore. And I'll go to the shelter and show me every dog that's old and every dog that's been here the longest.
I love when I see videos of people that do that.
And dogs know. I was telling somebody yesterday, I don't trust people that don't like dogs.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It makes me look at them sideways a little bit.
I'm very suspicious.
It's going to take me a minute,
Yeah, like you're sneaky.
especially if they say I love cats, but I don't like dogs.
Yeah,
Then that's even double.
yeah. I love all animals. I mean, I've
Yeah,
had.
don't get me wrong. I like cats
Yeah,
too. But
I've had cats.
you can't really be a cat person and not be a dog. Although I guess you can.
You can.
I guess you
I know some that are. Thing is, with cats, I think cats just kind of do their own thing. They just kind of look at you like dogs.
Cats were never supposed to be domesticated.
I don't really think they were
And
either.
I don't think they really even are now. I think they just allow us to live with them in a certain state so they don't kill us. Because they could in the middle of the night if they wanted to. Just come in,
Think about it.
kill her, be dead.
What between cats and dogs, which one could go feral quicker?
Cat.
A cat would survive. My two couch hippos over there.
Couch hippos.
If they got out and they were left to their own device,
Yeah.
they're gonna be like the people on the side of the road begging for money.
They'll look for the nearest human to rescue them.
Because one time Lexi got out, and I didn't know it, and I heard outside, and I opened the door, and she's sitting there like in massive panic mode. I'm like, well, that's what you get for going out. Anna's the same way, and it's funny because, they're. I can't imagine not having them. They're both very unique, and I enjoy. I think most days I would rather sit at home, watch them wrestle around, or just lay around than go out and do whatever. And dogs know when people are sketchy.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yep.
They can sniff them out. They sniff out
Yeah,
the fakes.
I meet a lot of dogs with my job. Like,
I like when you post that the dogs.
my dogs probably think I work at a shelter because I come home smelling like other dogs every day. But most of the time people are like, "Hold on, let me put my dogs up." I'm like, if they're not going to bite me, you can leave them out. And they're like, "Oh, okay, you like dogs?" And the dogs are all over you.
Do you ever get the judgment look from them when you come home and you smell like dogs?
Oh yeah,
my two do.
Yeah. Well, no. At first they attack me at the door, and then they're sniffing all over me, and then they won't leave me alone until I get up and change clothes. Basically,
yeah. My two. If I go down, if I'm hanging out with friends, if I'm with Crystal and them, and their dogs, or I'm down at the Green Grove with Rob and Tara, and there's dogs there, and I come home smell like dogs, the dogs will sniff me up, and sure enough, like Anna's good at the side eye.
Where you been?
Yeah,
she's probably like, why didn't you take me with you?
Well, and Anna would be the one to take, not Lexi. I don't think the lady that had her was very kind to her, and I think she had kids. So anytime we see kids, Lexi, full panic mode,
freeze up.
Yeah, she she tries to run.
Oh.
And then with women,
is she the Staffordshire?
No, she's the German Shepherd Beagle mix.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's pull up a picture of that one.
Yeah,
keep telling me a story about that one.
She's a
somewhere.
Both my dogs they're pretty dogs. Anna is the black and white dog. She's the part Staffordshire. I have a lot of.
Whoops. I just lost it.
Both of them are rescues. I don't know that I've posted a lot of pictures of my dogs on there. I have my daily Bible verse. There's that.
Have any pictures of your dogs?
Well, I have them on my phone, and I share them as need be.
I mean, that's basically what social media is for now. For people in their 50s, if you're not sharing pictures of your dogs, because our kids are all grown, what else?
Yeah, so the go down a little bit. There's Crystal. There's so go back up. So this picture right here, we're on a boat. Come back down. This picture right here. Yeah, so that's Rob, and that's his wife Tara, and there's me. And this is when we're on a ferry heading from Italy to Greece.
Oh, nice.
And you can see we have our beverages there. So we're up here laughing because leading up to this, we had a kid lose his passport.
Oh.
Yeah, we
in Greece?
In Italy.
Oh.
Yeah. So we left. We were on our way from Florence heading to the coast because we had to get to Athens, and we were going to take an overnight ferry, which is a unique experience in Europe. This is my first trip in Europe. I've never been anywhere, so I didn't know what to expect. So we get to we get to Bologna. We eat, explore Bologna a little bit, and we leave. And somewhere between Bologna and the coast, we stopped at a store. And the stores in Italy are next level. The food is amazing. I would put
restaurant quality food.
Oh, like better Italian food than you can find here, and except for Amici's, theirs is really good. So we get down there, and one of our travelers tells us, we're like, okay, y'all, make sure you have your passports. And we weren't taking passports up at this time, and he said, I don't know where my passport is. Well, apparently at the gas station, he had pulled out his passport. He had his money in there, and he left it on the counter. So, we're about to go to Greece, and we asked our tour director, will they check our passports? She goes, typically they do. And so we thought they were going to have to go back to Rome. And so we kind of get them all together, and as we're getting them together, we put a different shirt on Rob, gave him a hat, gave him sunglasses. We put the young man who just graduated, we put him in a different shirt and gave him a hat, and we switched our suitcases around. Our tour director goes to the port guys and says, hey, we have a large group. Can we just go on? And the guy's like, yes. So we didn't have to show. So we're sitting up here on the deck. This is after we've left. We're sitting out there on the deck, and the time to depart comes and goes, and we're still sitting there because they're still loading. Well, we're thinking, we're looking over the side, and if they start running up here, Rob, you're in trouble, man. So probably about 30 minutes after we were supposed to leave, we start to depart. And we're like, woohoo! We're all celebrating. And we get to Athens, we get to Greece, and they end up having to go to the embassy and get the young man a temporary passport so we can finish our trip. And
But you made it on through the
yeah,
ferry.
so my comment to Rob is that he needs to get an international fugitive tattoo, and he actually shared this story on
That's
a
funny.
podcast about travel, student travel recently, and you can tell these are some of our older pictures of, from our trips. I performed Crystal and Jacob's wedding.
Oh, nice. I like
They're
that.
Crystal's the sister I never had, and Jacob's just an amazing
Yeah.
guy. But
Yeah, they're good people.
food's a good thing. Food's a big thing for us. That's a friend of mine that's a coach up in North Texas, Michelle Housden.
Oh, nice.
She's
Still don't see any pictures of your dogs.
No, they're probably not on there. I have them on my phone. You can see I have a lot of that. That's my brother. And that was our cat. Yeah.
No.
That was a long time ago. Good grief. Yeah.
After college,
Well-
after you got your teaching degree,
Well, I wasn't certified.
you weren't certified.
So
but your degree is in history. You got
my major was history, minor kinesiology and sports studies, and
and then
I
where'd you go?
I applied for a job. Well, I applied for a job in Fort Worth, applied for a job at Dripping Springs, and applied for a job in Del Valley. So I was still working at UPS. I was a supervisor by then, and Del Valley calls me, want to interview. I'd never heard of Del Valley. I said, "Where are y'all at?" She go,
Was this
"Outside."
about 1994?
This was in
95?
98.
98?
Yeah, I graduated college in 97.
Okay.
Because I set out that year.
Oh, yeah.
My brother graduated before I did. He's younger than me. So I was like, sure. So, internet's still kind of a new thing,
Mm-hmm.
websites. So I booked a room at the La Quinta there at Ben White and 35.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove down after work all night from Sulphur Springs all the way down to Austin. And I checked in, and I was like, okay, you need to drive out to the school real quick and find out where you're going. So I get on Ben White. And you remember, this is before phones with,
This was before Ben
maps.
White was really Ben
yeah.
White.
So I drove out there, found where Del Valley was, pulled up. I was like, it's pitch black. I was like, oh, okay. Went back to the hotel and went over to the IHOP next door and ate. Then went to bed. Couldn't sleep. Went out there to interview and told him, I said, look, I'm not certified.
So you were 25 at the time?
Let's see, 98, 26, 27, yeah.
27? My math is really bad today, see?
No, that's my math's always bad for me. I had to pull out the calculator. So
I'm trying to think. I'm asking because I'm trying to think about what I was doing at that time, because it definitely wasn't that. But
and
we were just on two different paths.
and I thought I was a good interview back then.
No,
I didn't know how to answer questions to be a teacher because I hadn't gone through any teacher prep programs. But
did those exist at the time?
well, yeah, I mean, like
Okay.
the school I had's a teacher school.
Did you do any student teaching?
I didn't do any of that. I did observation, but
Okay.
the school I went to, they wanted you to do a year internship. So like you spent a semester kind of observing, and then your second semester you spent student teaching. They've since changed it, but I couldn't, and they didn't want you to have a job. Well, I had to have a job. So I did emergency cert and came down, interviewed, talked to them. I was told that I was enthusiastic, and whenever I left, I got a call. It was like, we'd like to hire you. I'm driving back, so we'd like to hire you. Be expecting a call from HR in the coming days.
All right.
And so I accepted the job and kind of had to get down here and find a place to live. And I lived over off William Cannon, an apartment complex not far off the interstate. And then worked at Del Valley for, like 7 years. And then I did my teacher certification program at Texas State. So during the summer, I'd go to Texas State. And this is what I found. While the program is good at teaching pedagogy, like the art of teaching, and the science behind it, they don't really teach you how to teach. And so that's one of those things that you kind of learn by trial and error. You just have to do it. It's a hands-on kind of thing. And it's when I look back, I'm glad I did emergency certification because I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think I would have gotten anything out of student teaching because I think I would have. But I also think I would have been frustrated and may not have gone through with it. So I just kind of had to do it as I went, learned as I go, and mimicked what I had been experiencing as a student in high school, which wasn't always the best, which we've talked about, and you know, kind of looking full circle now, the teacher I am now, I kind of feel bad for my past students because I kind of did them a disservice.
Could have been better. Well, we all grow.
Should have been better.
We learn and grow.
Yeah, should have been better. I had great kids, though. I had great students. I'm very blessed, but with the students I've been able to teach and the ones that I'm still in contact with, and even kids that weren't in my class, you know, we follow each other on social media, and they reach out from time to time.
That's good. I have a couple of teachers from my childhood that follow each other on social media. One's a choir teacher.
Yeah, I always tell the kids, you know, like this can be a lifelong relationship if that's what you want. And if you don't, then we can operate on a base level of what we do, and anything above that, you know, are things that we allow to have happen. So, you know, it's once I started, you know, haven't really looked back. It's been, you know, as I get down to the end of my career, it's been a lot of fun, and I would say I'm probably having more fun teaching right now that I'm not coaching than I ever have, because I can focus on.
How have you seen it change over since the beginning?
Oh, man, that's a great question. So
because you started teaching before cell phones became in the hand of every student.
Yeah, 98, 99 was my first year, and I would say, like, parents are the biggest change. We have multiple generations of parents that are afraid to see their kids fail. Yeah. And as a result of that, they are on top of things. At the moment their kid doesn't do something well in class, what can you do to bring it up? What can you do?
Everything's a competition now.
I mean,
like they're afraid to be left behind, I guess.
Well, and that's kind of the you know, the deal with teaching AP, which I do now, is you know, I told parents that meet the teacher night they came in, because I'd already told the kids this, like, quit worrying about grades. Grades don't matter. Well, they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
And because, like, a lot of kids that are in this may be news to people, it may not be. A lot of kids are in the top 10%. They cheat.
AI makes it really easy to cheat these days.
Well, and
it's right there in the palm of their hand.
Well, and this is when you get to know your students, you understand what kind of vocabulary level they have. And with AI, unless they take the time to go back and fix those things, like you can tell, I tend to be a little bit more, show a little bit more grace in those situations where, you know, I could say, well, you get a 0. Like, man, just fix it. Yeah. That's not your words.
How about don't do it again?
Yeah.
You know, but if it's a repetitive thing, then obviously.
I have a hard time not being willing to give a kid a second chance when I've asked for second chances from people in third and fourth and fifth.
It's the whole grace thing, you know?
Yeah, and they're kids.
Don't take advantage of grace and, you know, learn to move on.
Well, and they're kids, and they're going to try to get away with things at times, and when they get caught, there needs to be an out for them. And I haven't always felt that way. But
there needs to be a path of redemption.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. And and I think kids see teachers, some of the teachers they have that are out of touch. I think we do have teachers. So that's another thing. Teachers feel stressed. They feel like they're under a microscope. I think more so now. You know, with administrators, they're afraid to do certain things in the classroom because they're afraid an administrator's going to come in. It's like, what are you doing? This isn't what we're supposed to be doing. Why aren't you going over content? Yeah. The teachers had a little bit more autonomy, and now we have these PLCs, professional learning communities, and we have common lessons, so that what I think some teachers do, especially our younger teachers, is they sit in these PLCs and they get told, all right, so this is what we're doing. We're doing Beowulf, and this is the lesson, this is the framework, and when they hear this is how I'm going to teach it, they assume that that's how they have to teach it. And one of the things that I appreciated about my PLC for on-level world history the last few years, what we always talked about is if we're talking about the Renaissance, the way I teach it is going to be different than the way she's going to teach it and the way he's going to teach it. We just need to make sure that we're teaching the Renaissance so that if a kid moves from my class to their class, it's the same topic. We're all in the same scope and sequence. And I don't think young teachers are being trained the right way, because what I've seen, and we've talked about this with some of the comments we've gotten from kids, that maybe some teachers have gotten, a lot of teachers are just
lazy.
Yeah, lazy, and they're just
COVID laziness.
They're just phoning it in, and giving packets because that's the easy thing to do. But the kids want to learn.
I wouldn't have done well with packets. I mean, I like taking notes and I like reading.
Yeah.
But workbooks are just not. I don't know. It's too much like Mad Lib, I guess.
Yeah, and it's
fill in the blank.
I always ask my kids. I don't ever ask them who their teachers are because I don't want to know. It's none of my business. But I ask them what they're doing in other classes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't even have to ask. They volunteer.
Oh yeah, we've found that out.
Yeah.
All you got to do is let them speak, and then they'll tell you.
Yeah, and it's again, when you engage. What I've learned is when you engage them, you have way fewer behavior problems. You don't have as many kids walking around the halls of school. I always joke around with students I see out in the hall consistently. It's like, man, you're like those old people at the mall that walk around for exercise. They walk around, but they never go into the store or the food court to buy anything. It's like you're never in class. You can't learn anything. Coach, they don't teach anyway. We're doing worksheets.
Do you see it being a generational difference, or is it the younger teachers who are seem to be caring less, and the teachers who are your age and older?
I think it's a big mix. I think
teaching
it's a mix.
an old school style.
I think it's both.
Some older teachers just burned out.
I think COVID. Well, I think COVID made teachers lazy because when kids were at home and we're teaching virtually, we had to, they just put a packet together and give it to them. They're like, oh, well, they do the packet. But the thing is, like, if we're talking about causes of World War I, which we've been doing in my class, I can't give them a packet and have them learn about militarism, imperialism, the alliance system, the assassination, and nationalism, all this stuff, and expect them to understand that. They're not experts in that field.
Yeah.
They're experts at TikTok and
yeah,
not good music and things like that. So, we need to get back to instruction. I'm not saying that direct instruction is the way to do it. I just know that what I do works for me,
yeah,
and it works for my students. When I find that students aren't going to do the reading material, then I have to ramp up the intensity of our notes or the complexity of our notes so that they're getting the content that they need, so that when they take the AP exam in May, they've been exposed to this material and the writing. So what we've been doing in my classes, we've been focused a lot on the writing, so we're probably a little bit behind what other AP World History classes are doing around the state, but I think it's been a good plan because their writing for my kids has gotten so much better, and that's not me. That's them. They're willing to take instruction. Practice. Yeah,
just like anything else. You can't play ping pong if you never pick up a paddle and hit the ball.
Yeah, it's like it's being coachable. In coaching, if I have a kid that takes some instruction, take some suggestions, like you're doing this, let's try this, and then goes out and scores 3 goals in a game, I don't want any credit for that. That's all on that player because they choose to listen, they choose to do that. They get the credit.
Yeah, they learned and remembered and executed.
I'll take responsibility for losses, and I'll take responsibility for poor performance. I won't take credit for the successes. That's all going to be on them. And I also think, teachers, as teachers, we need to do a better job of building our kids' confidence up. I keep telling my students, at the beginning of the school year, they're panicked about the AP World History exam. It's like, you guys got to do writing, short answer, free response, DBQs, and they're like, I was like, no, man, y'all going to knock it out of the park. Like, do y'all trust me?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We don't know.
So as we've gone, there starts to be more buy-in with how we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably shouldn't say this, but right or wrong, I don't ding them as many points as I probably should have early on.
So we're learning.
Like I wasn't taking off for grammar and spelling, even though they're working on a computer and it lets you know when it's not grammatic. But just recently we've implemented that. I said, because y'all need to pay attention. Mm-hmm. That's a lack of attention to detail, and you're not proofreading. And so I've noticed that the instances of misspellings and grammatical errors, we've almost eliminated that because they're paying attention now.
It takes just a minute or so to go back and look.
Yeah.
Oh, that's underlined. Oh, that's not right.
And when you don't ding them, like for me, I just have a hard time.
It's doing the proofreading for them pretty much. They just have to go back and fix the mistakes.
As they're doing it. I have a hard time hurting a kid's grade severely for things that they haven't necessarily been taught the right way to do.
That's good.
It's not their fault. And so if I take off 3 or 4 points instead of 6 or 7, it doesn't impact their grade as much in a negative way. And whenever we get ready, we always debrief. After a writing assignment, we debrief. And I'll show them the example that I'm grading off of. Like, if you want 7 points on the AP exam, this is the super terrific happy hour answer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've really been working on how to add context to what they're writing. Here's the prompt.
Super terrific happy hour.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that phrase in so long.
Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want the complexity point, then sometimes you have to. Well, not sometimes. You have to add relevant information from other topics into what you're talking about. So if we're talking about the increase in militarism, or we were talking about weaponry yesterday, about how the improvements in weaponry, and how in history the people with the best technology win. So it isn't always true. You know, you look at Vietnam, you look at Afghanistan,
right?
You look at things like that. It's not always the truth, but we give examples. You know, like how the conquistadors conquered the native Indians, and how different groups of people. We go to Africa during imperialism, and how European powers were able to get over the native peoples because they had superior technology. You need to be able to add that piece when you're talking about the improved weaponry in World War I, because the Russians didn't have it, and they struggled. Then they had the Bolshevik Revolution and pulled out. So typically the country or the group with the most up-to-date, the best technology is going to win. So you have to be able. So we model that for them in our notes, and I make sure, like, stop, quit typing, and look at what we're doing here. We're modeling for you what you need to do in your writing assignments, so y'all know. And then I was asked yesterday by our interim principal to ask my students if what we're doing in my class is helping them in their writing in English. And they said yes. And I said, what are y'all doing in English right now? And they're like, worksheets. And we're going to work on STAR stuff next month.
We don't get into that.
Well,
I don't know. That'll be a whole nother podcast when we talk about
and there's
teachers
ways
not teaching.
Well, and people are always saying, well, you know, teachers are teaching to the test. Okay. Well, if you're doing it right and you're starting from day one, you can teach the test while going through curriculum.
Right.
I used to not.
You can teach above and beyond the test.
Yeah. I used to not
just by the way you teach.
Yeah. And I used to not be that teacher. I was a go through the motions guy.
Yeah. What changed for you?
When I worked at Hutto, and the principal, like 3 days before school started, comes to me and says, hey, you're like one of our most experienced social studies teachers. Do you want to be the virtual world history teacher? I was like, what does that entail? He goes, well, you would pick the days because we were a hybrid schedule. We had kids at school and we had kids at home.
This was during COVID?
Yeah, this was after COVID. So this is when they opened up schools back. So I said, I was like, yeah, what do I need to do? He goes, well, you'll pick the days you meet. You'll be in a sophomore class, you need to meet at least 2 days a week. I said, okay. He goes, and you just craft your lessons for them at home. I was like, okay. So I had no idea what to do. It's out of my realm of comprehension. Someone's out there, their blower. Anyway,
If you hear that, we got yard work going on outside.
yeah, someone's out there
Got louder.
mowing their weeds or something. So I sat down and I was like, okay, well, this is good. So I decided I was going to meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I would use Tuesday, Thursday as like a tutoring day to help any SPED students, 504, and then set up parent meetings. And if any kids needed help, they could log in, and we were meeting through Google Classroom, through Google Meets. And I made the policy that we were going to meet during the class time schedule that the school had. So if it was first period, we're going to meet during first period. If it's second period, we're going to meet during second period. So we met every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It was consistent. I had it on my Google Classroom. This is when we meet. So there was never a doubt as to what days and what times we met. It's like that through the whole school year. Because kids need consistency.
Right.
And I had parents were telling me this. And then the first 6 weeks, I'm trying to teach in a traditional way. Essential questions, had some worksheets. And I noticed my attendance wasn't very good. Kids weren't turning in lessons. Engagement wasn't good. I was like, man, forget this crap. This sucks. I can't do this. So I reached out to some teacher friends of mine. And they're like, man, check out YouTube. If all your kids are at home, check out YouTube's much better than it used to be. I was like, okay. So I checked out YouTube, found John Green Crash Course stuff, which was excellent. The guy that does a lot of the AP stuff, Heimler, his stuff is really good. I use him for AP World.
I think you were telling me about him.
Yeah, he's energetic. He's funny. His quote that I love: "Let's get those brain cows milked." And he presents it a different way.
Yeah. That guy.
So we end up
subscribe must be different.
Yeah, and so this is what he does. I mean, look, he's got 903,000 subscribers, 634 videos, and with the AP World Modern, he's updated in the last year. So all the videos are more up to date. What I found is that kids started showing up to class. We'd watch a 12 to 15-minute long video, have a little bit of discussion, and I'd cut them loose. And I would tell them, show up, be on the screen, be active on the screen, so I can see you. I don't care if you're laying in bed. I need to see you. Right. If I don't see you, if you disappear, don't have your cat on the screen. Don't put your screensaver up. I need to see active video that if I don't see you or you disappear without typing in the chat box where you're going, I will kick you out and you will be counted absent. And they did it. They followed through. I had kids. This is when what's the name of that water park up there in Round Rock?
It was
the one up there by
Typhoon something for a while.
No, the resort place like
Austin Park and Pizza.
No, that's like Grey Wolf Lodge.
Oh, yeah.
That one. So when that thing opened up, I was working at Hutto, and I had kids tell me, "It's like we're going to the grand opening." And I was like, "But you're at home. You're at home. You don't want to go to school because of COVID." It's like, "Coach, I just don't want to go to school. That's why I'm not. That's why I'm not going. So I'd rather do this online, virtually." I'm like, "Okay." And so they were at. What's funny is they were at. Yeah, that place.
Kalahari Resort.
Yeah, Kalahari. Yeah. They were outside at the pools. On their phones. For class, attending class. And then I had kids were playing sports at baseball tournaments, softball tournaments, logging in between games to watch our videos. And then what we do is when we met, you had to show up to be counted absent. I mean, to kind of be kind of present. And then on Tuesday, Thursdays, they would have a writing assignment over what we did the day before. And that was their attendance. And they had to do, and I made them do writing. They had to do a minimum 3 to 4 well-written sentences. And if it wasn't 3 well-written sentences, then you got a 0. I wouldn't even grade it at all.
And it worked.
And I would give them an opportunity to fix it, but the highest grade they could get would be a 70. And it worked. And I started having parents join in. This is when I knew I'd kind of hit on something. We were watching a video about the tunnel rats of Vietnam. And
tell me more.
Yeah. In one of the videos, they had a film reel of a jungle cobra that was sitting up almost eye level with somebody, and the kids were like, one of them typed in the chat box, "I have a question," so I paused it. I said, "What's your question?" And they got on the speakers like, "Is that real? That looks fake." And I said, "That is 100% real. The tunnel rats, were a real thing." I said, "You understand the tunnel rats?" I said, "Just for context, the tunnel rats were typically short guys. They often picked, Hispanics, blacks, or white guys from rural America." Found out last night that my dad, if things hadn't gone the way they would have gone, he would have been a tunnel rat.
Oh.
Yeah. And I said, so in the tunnels, they had sharpened up bamboo spears with poison on it. There were scorpions, jungle scorpions. But the most common thing in the tunnels were IEDs and poisonous vipers. And you walk in, you have your gun in your hand, you have a knife in your mouth, and you have your flashlight, and you're crawling around. And when we got off that film, a couple of parents sitting around, it's like, I never even knew that. And one guy said that his dad was in Vietnam. His dad had been a tunnel rat.
I never knew about him either.
I mean, it was it was amazing, the engagement that these kids had. And then when I went to Taylor, I had some kids reach out and say, "Coach, I just want to thank you for the way you taught us, because when we're in U.S. history this year, our teachers are asking us questions that everybody that had you for virtual world history knew because of the videos, because we're visual learners."
So this was at Taylor High School?
When I was at Taylor, I got from
Hutto to Taylor?
Yeah, I got some emails from. They found out where I was, tracked me down, stalkers, and they emailed me. And so that's when I realized I was kind of onto something here, and I just started to incorporate that in my class, and got away from like essential questions and worksheet type stuff, and went into watching videos, have discussion, and then do writing assignments and storytelling. Because whenever we're watching a video, I'll pause and add context to what they're talking about, because Heimler's videos, you're usually about 5.5 to 6 minutes. They're pretty short, concise. Yeah. It's an overview, but it's some good visuals. So we talked about propaganda and how propaganda had been used before, but really became a noteworthy tool during the First War as a way of motivating people to get behind a cause, and the way they portrayed the Germans as like evil guerrillas that were after Western Europe, and portrayed them as evil. And so we took a look at some examples of recruiting posters using propaganda and things like that. So always pause and give context. There was a discussion about Lenin and the revolution. I said, let me pause right there and let me tell you. So there was an initial revolution. Lenin's in exile in Germany, and here's what happens. And then this guy here is in after the Tsar was deposed, is under house arrest out in the Crimea. This guy takes over, but he's not really good. So Lenin comes back. And Lenin worried, the Bolsheviks worried the conservative Russians in Russia. So when Lenin finally takes over, there's a group of conservative Russians that are concerned about his power grab. And so we end up in a civil war, the Reds versus the Whites. And at this point is when Lenin had to sue for peace. And so they gave up territory. So I showed them a current map. I said, over here where Belarus and Poland are, that was Germany and Russia. They were shared a border. And so we talked about the two-front war. And so the video still paused, and the kids were like, how do you remember all this? So I'm like, I like history. So
teaching it for a while too.
Yeah. So and they enjoy the stories.
History only changes when we find out the truth.
Yeah, exactly. And so they enjoy the stories, and then we go back to the video, and then we start talking about why it was easy to recruit men to fight in the war because of sense of duty and honor and nationalism. So I pause, and I tell them, I said, y'all need to understand, during this time period in World War I and even World War II, it was easy to get get young men motivated to join, because, like in the First War, you're fighting the Germans, and it should have been a regional conflict, but they're fighting the Germans. Germans were viewed as the aggressor because they were an economic power. They had been building up their military for for several years, since like 1868. They've been building up their navy. They built these dreadnoughts, and they're battleships, and then Britain was in an arms race with them, and so we started talking about that a little bit. I said, so you had 16-year-old men in England and the United States that would forge their birth date because they wanted to go fight with their friends or their older brothers.
And now we have 16-year-olds who don't even want to get their driver's license.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I mean,
what happened in a century? Well, that would be a whole nother podcast series too. Yeah.
Parents. Like
technology, industrial revolution.
Well, and that's why I appreciate. I don't think I ever really appreciated the job my parents did of raising my brother and I until I got down here, started teaching kids that didn't know who their parents were. Yeah, their parents were in jail. That's what I learned at Del Valley. Parents who were in jail. They were living with aunts and uncles. They were living with grandparents. Like, how do I get hold of your mom and dad? You don't. Like, where are they? They're dead. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, like what? It's like, yeah, my parents, died from drugs. I'm from Sulphur Springs, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the worst.
That doesn't happen much in Garland.
No,
either.
The worst thing I could think of in Sulphur Springs was going to school with a pimple on your nose, or
right,
not driving to school.
Yeah.
Because
not getting
because you had a permit, but your parents couldn't get you a car. That was the least of my concerns. And here these kids are, they're sophomores and freshmen, sophomores, juniors in high school. Well, Coach, I don't know who my dad is. I don't know who my parents are because they're not around. Or, hey, Coach, you know the Del Valley Correctional Facility over there by the golf course and the airport? Yeah, my parents are over there. I remember I went home after the first few days of school and called my parents. I was just, thank you. Thank you. I've never told y'all that, but thank you for the job y'all did.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's heartbreaking. And we still have those issues.
And kids, you don't get a choice. You're born into it. And if you're born into a bad set of parents or a bad family, that's the hand you're dealt.
Right. And kids aren't going to volunteer this information.
No.
I always take a look at
they're trying to hide it.
At their demographics, and we have kids who has a parent that's not allowed to have contact with them. It'll have it labeled on their sheet. Kids don't share this information. If they share it with you, it's because they trust you. So they'll let you know. We have a large number of students that are the result of teen pregnancies in schools. We have a lot of kids that are being raised by single moms. They don't have positive male role models in their life, and that's
why we have KOZ.
That's why we have KOZ. And I've talked to a buddy of mine that works at Elgin that I taught, Ty Norton, about coming over some Thursday to base camp. And I said, let me introduce you to Don and to the guys from KLZ so you can start a chapter out there at the Elgin First Baptist Church. Because him and his wife are fixing to start a ministry there. He goes, we have a lot of guys. He goes, for a fact there's a lot of guys that hunt and fish out here. I said, you would find it, especially at Elgin, for all the kids, their youth group is growing because the First Baptist Church is right next to the school now. And I said, it doesn't matter if it's a Baptist church. To me, it's just about how there's a lot of single parent homes out there.
Right.
I said, can you imagine? I said, Ty, can you imagine getting a KLZ out there and the things that y'all could do?
It really makes a difference
for those young men and women out there, for those young kids out there. Yeah, he goes, well, what do they do? I said, teach them about hunting, fishing, teach them how to do crafts, how to use power tools, how to change a tire, how to field dress an animal.
Discipline.
And he asked me,
self-control.
He goes, yeah. He goes,
things a father would teach him.
Field dress an animal. I said, yeah. I said, several guys that are friends of mine because of base camp will go hunting. They'll go hunt a hog, or during deer season, bring a deer and teach the kids how to process it. He's like, man, that's freaking cool. I said, yeah. And I said, at a community like Elgin, y'all have more people moving out there. I said, it would be great for y'all.
Yeah.
I said, and as well as I do, you've been teaching for a couple of years now, that we have a great lack of strong male figures for our young people. And I said, and our KLZ group just went to the Ukraine.
Yeah. I keep talking to Don, he and TJ on for an episode to talk about that trip.
Yeah, the stuff Don's told us at base camp. Like they witnessed some of the drone bombings. It's crazy. Things that people here just don't understand.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of those videos just by chance they came across, but I haven't gone looking for them. I know they're probably all over X.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy can't do anything. You can't outrun it. You can't hide. You can hide until you can't.
Yeah. Well, and this is another
eventually.
Yeah, it's another reason why our trips to Europe during the summer are extremely important. I like exposing kids to travel, and I'm very thankful for Rob getting me involved in this because I'm from Sulphur Springs. The idea that I would get to see the Roman Colosseum, and
let's talk about that. How'd you get involved in that?
Well, I was in the process. I just accepted a job at Lockhart, and Rob was on a trip to the Galapagos.
Okay, so we've gone from Del Valley to Hutto to Taylor.
I was from Del Valley. I was at Austin High, and then I went to Elgin, and then I went to Lockhart, and then it was at Hutto.
How long were you at Austin High?
3 years. I enjoyed my time there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very diverse and unique school.
So
it's one of the oldest schools west of the Mississippi.
That probably would have been around 2010, 12?
Yeah.
Around there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a great time there.
So and then Lockhart.
So I'm sitting at home, and Rob's his one trip he didn't go to Europe. He's in the Galapagos, and he's at the Darwin Center, and he's texting me. He's like, "You're going on the next trip." He goes, "Just when school starts, you need to have a meeting, get kids signed up, and you're going." He goes, "We're doing Italy and Greece with a 3-day Greek island cruise extension." I was like,
"Nice.
Okay." I'd been to Mexico. I'd been on a cruise. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm going to have to get a passport, so had no idea what I was getting into. Was not in good enough shape to do all the walking around because Rome, Italy, experienced a heat wave from Africa that summer. And the moment we landed, it's a whole different scene. So I wasn't prepared. But Rob Rush convinced me to do this, and I've been doing it ever since. And Rob's a great friend. He's like family, and I'm very appreciative of him for getting me involved in this because it's allowed me to see things that I never thought I'd see and have a greater appreciation for our country,
right? And
just for how things are going around the world. Because like when you think about it, our country's history is not that old.
Young.
17. Like let's look at it.
You got to dig deep to find the old buildings.
Yeah, let's basically go from 1776 to 2025. That's not a long time.
No.
But we also have one of the highest standards of living. Our government's not perfect, but we have freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the best in the world, but it's the best. We
have a lot of things built of plywood and hardy plank.
Yeah, it's the best thing.
Stone.
People complain a lot, and people are going to disagree with this. It's the best thing going today.
America?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I still believe in this country.
Yeah, me too. I put my Texanhood above that.
I have a hard time believing in our government.
Yeah.
But I believe in our country's ability to correct the government.
But, and these things we could talk about later on, but our government's the way it is because of us.
Right. What we've allowed to happen.
What we've allowed to happen.
And, there's a lot of evil involved in there, too.
Well, there is. And you think about it, if you have politicians
there's intentional evil.
Yeah, if their politicians aren't doing their job, vote them out. Because in corporate America, if you're not good at what you do, you get fired, allegedly, in theory. And but it's allowed me to see things. I've been able to knock off my heritage on trips. I'm German, Scotch, Irish. I've been to Germany. I've been to Ireland. Been to Scotland.
Nice.
I'll be in Italy this summer for the 3rd time. Wow. Just sitting here saying that. I'll be Rome for the 2nd time. This is how some people see you're a travel snob, because we're going to be in Italy during the Jubilee year this summer. And so the Jubilee's every 25 years. It's a pilgrimage for Catholics to come to Rome and get indulgences. And so that opens up a whole different level of conversation. As you look at the Reformation with Martin Luther and the selling of indulgences. So we'll be there, and then
We'll put that on the list for an episode.
yeah, as the Pope's health continues to be an issue, we might be there either right after he could pass, as they're selecting a new Pope, which means even more people will come to Rome to see that. It's a very unique opportunity that we. It
always weirded me out, that and the British royal family.
Yeah,
like why are they worshiping these people?
Yeah, yeah. And if you ever go to the Vatican, because I mean the idea of being in the Vatican was like
I would love to go
really
check it
cool for me. And then the Sistine Chapel. So we walk in the Sistine Chapel. I didn't know what to expect. You're told don't take pictures. You can't take pictures. And there are guards, Vatican police in there.
What are they going to do now with the meta glasses?
I don't know, but they are constantly. Their head is on a swivel, and they are yelling, "Move to the back! No flash photography, no cell phone photography whatsoever. You will be escorted out." And they are making this thing, and you're standing in there. And when I walked in and I looked up, the first thing that popped in my head was the movie with Charlton Heston where he played Michelangelo. Yeah, and I'm looking up there, and with Rex Reed as the Pope, and their dynamic that existed between them. I can't even remember the name of the movie.
I'll find it.
But it's when I walked in there, it was absolutely amazing. So I like Ben-Hur. We saw stuff from that. No, it was like we saw Circus Maximus. Put in Charlton Heston as the Pope. There it is, right there. See him standing there. The third slide. No, go back.
Not Ben-Hur.
No.
Oh, we're going the other way.
Look at the images. The third one over.
Oh, the images.
Yeah. The agony and the ecstasy.
There it is.
So there's some historical fiction in there, but
I've never seen this movie.
But I'll tell you what it does. It shows
1965.
It shows the role of the Pope in a non-religious role because the popes became more secular. They became not just religious, but also became political and military leaders. Because during this time period, see there he is in his armor. He's leading. As the papal states expanded. And so when we walked in, the vision of Charlton Heston on those scaffolds, so they didn't poke holes in the ceiling, to painting the Sistine Chapel, even though that it wasn't him. But when you walk in, it is absolutely overwhelming. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It was emotional. Being in the Pantheon was emotional.
I want to go to Pompeii too.
Yeah, Pompeii's an amazing experience. But it's so good. This is the marble quarry that he was working in outside of Florence. Because remember, he was a sculptor. He wasn't a painter. Sculpting was his thing.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
How could
Florence,
painting not be your thing?
So in Florence, there's all kinds of things about the Renaissance artists because the Medicis were based out of Florence.
That's what's so fascinating about history, and I don't understand why people think history is boring.
Because they didn't have good teachers.
I guess, yeah. I mean, my kids even.
You have to make it interesting.
My kids too don't think it's that interesting.
And that's why I like the videos in class because kids are visual. When I'm showing videos in my class,
there he is.
He's talking to the Cardinals. Why do you bring idiots to judge my work? Yeah, and it's just it's. The kids, when we're showing videos, they're like, they're glued to the screen, and I pick ones that are short enough. And then yesterday, as we're finishing up World War I, we kind of hit the highlights. I showed him John Green's crash course about World War I, and they're like, "Coach, why are we watching this?" I said, "Because I want you to get a different perspective. Because whenever we talk in class about how I could sit down with 15 people and ask them what they think about this particular topic, I get 15 different responses because everybody comes from a different background. If you're a different ethnicity. So if I ask 15 people about Let's say the Sistine Chapel, since we've been looking at that. The Sistine Chapel and its importance.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those people is Italian. Or more importantly, one of them's from Rome, one of them's from Florence. The guy from Rome, the guy from Florence could have a different background opinion about the Sistine Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Florence, that's the birthplace of the Renaissance. I said, so, everybody has opinions, back it up with facts, and you need to be able to look at different viewpoints and perspectives of historical events so that you understand where people are coming from. Doesn't mean you need to believe them, but whenever you hear someone give their view on slavery, and it's something different that you heard before, if they can back it up with facts, it presents a unique perspective for you so that if you're on the AP exam and you're typing a response, you can pull that in. It adds complexity, and it makes you sound more intelligent. And it might cause you to think differently.
And that always helps with your grades.
Yeah, and it might cause you to think differently about things that you've been taught or been told to believe.
Right.
And I said, Dr. Rudolph told us, question everything.
Always.
When you hear something, we see something on the news, go to at least 2 or 3 different sources, because the stuff with London Heathrow yesterday with the fire, there were so many reports, delays for 24 hours. Delays
they shut it down.
Yeah,
right?
Delays up to 2 to 3 days. And then even some reports saying delays up to over a week. I said, so that tells you that what ends up happening is the way things are reported are from different perspectives, from different viewpoints. And you need to be able, somewhere in the middle of all that's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to
and
find
a lot of propaganda.
Yeah, and it's up to you to find the truth.
It's unfortunate that we've gotten to a point where we have to decipher what we're being told,
or we have to have all sides,
to see whether or not it's true or not, because you don't really know what's true anymore. You know what they're telling you. You know what they want you to believe.
Right.
But if you only go with what the headline says, or with what 90% of the media that's bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical companies say, then you're not going to really know the truth. Like you're just going to know and believe what they just told you to believe based on, a paragraph or two that you've read and formed an opinion on that you're willing to die. I've seen people willing to, that's the hill you're going to die on, and you don't even know. You have a surface level knowledge of this topic, and you're on social media posting things, and it looks like you're ready to die on that hill by what you believe.
Yeah.
And you don't even know 90% of the story. You don't even know 90% of the truth. You haven't even dug or swum past the first layer of information to get to the actual information.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the media, is they're only giving you what they want you to know.
Right.
Because that's how they can control you.
Well,
and if you don't go past them and start looking at the people who are dissecting that information and who are talking about it, like people on podcasts are, then you're never going to know the truth, because you're not going to know the history, for one. You're not going to know the politics, for two, behind it all. And you're not going to know the reason they're wanting to do it and do things. A lot of it's watch what's going on over here so you don't see what we're doing over here. So it's a shell game of
and some people
manipulation. And
some people don't want to see
it.
facts.
I don't know how. Yeah. I don't know how people don't see it, but there are a lot of people out there that still don't see it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't know history.
Right.
And I don't know how you can find it boring.
It's the most important subject we teach.
I don't know how you can find it boring.
Yeah, it's the most important subject we teach.
You're filling yourself up with the knowledge that you need going forward in life based on what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And people don't seem to grasp that. They're too, I guess, locked into whatever media drug they're getting from that cult-like following of a media, that they don't really want to see it. I don't think. I don't think some people don't want to see the truth because they don't want to be wrong.
Yeah, and people want information that fits their narrative,
right?
So that they can be right. And I don't like admitting when I'm wrong, but I'll admit when I'm wrong.
Right.
I'm very careful about what I say.
Sure.
And what I talk about, and that when I talk about it, I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate.
Right.
But if I'm going to tell you something, I'll tell my students this: you can fact search me. It doesn't bother me. And if you find something that I've said that's not accurate, call me on it.
Let me know, because I want to learn too.
I want to learn too. And I tell them, it's like, look, I'm not here and you're here.
But
we're all here.
It used to be that we all knew and believed the same thing because maybe only because 3 channels were telling us,
Mm-hmm.
ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all on the same page. And then it got to the point where information became more accessible to everybody
Mm-hmm.
because of the internet. And now we don't even know it's true anymore.
Well, and the news, somewhere along the way, the news stations quit being about informing and started being about making money.
Yeah, the 24-hour news cycle did
Yeah.
that.
CNN.
Mm-hmm.
When CNN first came out, you
Yeah.
know, and I'll be honest with you, as an American citizen, there are things that our government is involved in with the military and the CIA
Mm-hmm.
that I don't care if I ever know about.
Yeah. Well,
If it's protecting us, if it's protecting our country, I would say on any given day, there have been times in our country's history where we have had boots on the ground in countries we were not supposed to be in.
oh, for sure. Right
100%.
now. Right now.
Right
even.
now.
There are dark ops going on all
Yeah.
over the place. We don't know
And
about.
if it's in the interest of national defense
Mhm.
and it's protecting us,
But
Well,
that's the thing. Who decides is the thing. We have
Yeah.
to put the trust in the government, I
well, and
guess,
think about
at
this.
that point, because they're deciding what we should know.
Mm-hmm. Since I would let's look at the Boston Marathon bombing. When was the last terrorist attack in this country?
Well, how long ago was that? About 10 years ago?
Yeah.
There, San Bernardino. I don't know how long ago that was. Got that couple in the truck.
Well,
Shot up that meeting.
People are always saying, "Well, the Patriot Act was too intrusive." Okay, well, if you don't have anything to hide, unless you're looking up
The
how
Patriot
to buy,
Act ended up being a bad idea in the long run.
in the long run, it did.
But
if you're
It's almost like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
yeah, like if you're living in Los Angeles and you're researching how to buy 50,000 pounds of fertilizer,
Mm-hmm.
what are you fertilizing in Los Angeles?
Right.
What are you doing with that? And
But the thing is the FBI tracks all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Homeland Security tracks all that stuff. And then when something happens, they go, oh, well, yeah, they were on our watch list.
yeah,
We knew about them.
mm-hmm.
Well, why didn't you do anything?
Yeah.
If you knew about them and they're on your watch list and they just searched how to make a bomb, then why didn't you go after them? Why didn't you surveil them harder? Did you want it to happen?
You almost go back and think in a similar sense, okay, well, did we know the Japanese were going to bomb Pearl Harbor?
I think yes.
I think there was agents in our government that probably did.
I say yes.
And to get involved in the war, they're like,
mm-hmm. Right. It was our ticket in.
yeah, it was our ticket in.
Kind of like the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah.
That
100%. I think it's something that oftentimes, I'll be honest with you, the Gulf of Tonkin, there are multiple generations of kids that have graduated from high school that know nothing about the Gulf of Tonkin because in world history, you have teachers that get to World War II and they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told teachers before, like when you're teaching world history, that's a lot of content to get through. You're not supposed to do a deep dive in anything. And I love talking about the Reformation. I love talking about the Renaissance.
Yeah.
I love talking about, I like World War I over World War II. I like talking about certain topics above others. But our job as world history teachers is you hit the high points.
Mm-hmm.
You hit it and go. You hit it and go. And in our PLC the last few years, we would talk about it. I was like, no, we need to go. We need to go. We need to go. We need to be at World War I by Christmas break.
Yeah.
So that we can take that period of time off, come back World War II, and by the time we get to...
That's kind of how it was when we were in high school,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
We had to get to a certain...
Well, early on in my career, we'd barely get to World War II, and we'd spend the last few days of class cramming 1949 to whatever year it was in, and kids don't care about World War I and World War II. What they want to know about World War II is Hitler and the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know. We have kids now that weren't alive during 9/11.
Yeah.
Kids need to be taught. We need to hit the high notes. I mean, that's kind of what I enjoy about AP World History is I teach College Board curriculum, not TEKS.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as we're knocking things out, we're still hitting the high notes, the high points, but we can do a little bit deeper discussion about these things. And then as teachers, whether it's in English, science, I know for me in my class, you have to be able to tie present to the past, because my students that have gone up to college have told me that where they struggled was being able to connect current events with the past.
Hmm.
So that's why I tell them, like, look, your college professors don't care what your class rank was. They don't even care what you made on your SAT or ACT. They don't care if you graduated 10th or 510. What they want to know is, can you connect what's happening in the world today with what's happened in the past? Do you know why?
Right. Critical thinking.
Yeah. Do you know why?
Problem solving kind of thing.
You know, what could have solved this? What could have solved the problem in Israel? Well, I can tell you, when after the 7-Day War, the Israelis, if they had wiped the Palestinians off the face of the earth, then you wouldn't have had to share what they view as their homeland, because they both claim birthright thanks to Abraham.
Yeah, that's
and
a
so
whole mess
you have
over there we can get into.
So you have some teachers that won't say that in class because they're afraid that they're going to be accused of indoctrinating with religion. No, these are facts.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible's real.
History is real.
History is real.
History's not always pretty.
So when you have two groups of people that are of different religions that are claiming birthright claim to a piece of land, okay, and
willing to die for it.
And willing to die for it. And then
that's the kicker.
And then when you have a Western European power, England, who decides to leave with no power succession, so you have a 7 Days War, to the victor go the spoils.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look at it the way the Israelis are now, if they had had that mentality back then, the Palestinians would have been dead.
Mm-hmm.
They would have killed them all. And they wouldn't have to worry about what's happening on the West Bank and settlement in Gaza. But to the victor go the spoils. Well, we want.
Yeah, they showed mercy.
Yeah, and I feel and as a believer, I have empathy for those people, for the Palestinians,
right?
Because not all Palestinians are Hamas,
right?
And not all people in Hamas are Palestinians, and so there's a lot of innocent people getting caught up in the crossfire, and they're good.
Hamas is not fighting a fair war. They're hiding in the population.
And I've met some Palestinians, and they're amazingly loving and caring and amazing people.
They're human shields over there.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
Yeah, and they're being caught up in a birthright battle that's become cultural and political.
I hear a lot of people saying, "Well, that's what they voted for. They voted for Hamas, but they didn't. You don't get a choice.
You don't get a choice.
It was vote for us, or we're just going to kill your family."
Well, and Hamas,
or we're going to use you as shields anyway. We're going to dig tunnels under your house. And
how many people you think know about the PLO?
Yeah,
with Yasser Arafat, who at one point was deemed a terrorist, and was a top 5 to 10 terrorist by this country.
We can go
and
down
then became a
politician on all the Middle East wars since Bush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yasser Arafat was an interesting statesman who, at the end of his life, was advocating for peace, and would probably be extremely appalled at what's happening over there right now, and probably wouldn't be a fan of Hamas. Hamas is worse than the PLO ever was.
Mm-hmm.
That includes the group that hijacked the Munich Olympics. There's a lot of people don't know about that.
Was that 72? That year I was born?
Yeah, because when we were in Munich this summer, we were literally we were at the BMW Museum. We were right down the street from the Olympic Village where that happened.
Crazy.
Like, we looked right down the street and we could see what used to be the athletes' village. And this is why, again, I will tell people, if you are not traveling abroad, let me take your kids. Give up your fast food, give up your McDonald's, whatever, give up your stuff, pay for your kid to go on trips with me. Well, they've never flown before. Okay, well, neither have a lot of other kids that have gone on my trips. The first time they flew was from San Antonio to either Chicago or Atlanta or wherever, and their second flight was to our destination, Europe. Let them go.
Are any of them worried about safety? Is that why they don't really send them?
Right now it's cost because of the economy. And we try to pick trips that are under 5K.
So tell me, we started this whole thing about when you started doing these trips. This was probably 30 minutes ago. So how did you get involved in that again?
Rob Rush.
Rob.
told me I was. He didn't
And so
ask me to
for
start
the
going. He
people
told
who
me.
don't know what it's about, explain that
So
first.
we use a company called EF, Education First, and they are the premier. They're like they were the first, if not the first company to do educational trips.
Right.
And they have several different other umbrellas. They do trips here in America, Explorica, and then they have EF Go Ahead tours that are geared more towards adults.
Okay.
And we do the EF trips. And so it's a company based out of Switzerland, but they have headquarters here too. And they have an office here in Austin. And we pick where we want to go. And we pick places that we think the kids would like to go. There's this EF Group Leaders Facebook page. Man,
Is it
you talking about
is it one of those pages?
You talking about a rabbit hole, man. You think the Wembley Community Forum will wear you out sometimes, or
everything in Kyle Uncensored?
It's a different animal, but because there's people that pick trips that they want to go on, and we know some people that pick trips they want to go on. It's not about you; it's about the kids.
Yeah.
And so Rob and I've kind of talked about maybe even asking the students where they like to go. So we pick where we think kids want to go. Italy's always a popular destination. France and Spain are too.
Pretty affordable.
Yeah.
On the reasonable
So
side.
when we always try to pick trips that are going to be under 5,000 for the students, like around 4,700, we're usually gone 9 days. We're usually on the ground for 7. We fly to San Antonio because Rob's in New Braunfels, and then we'll fly to another airport, get on a plane, and then we fly over to our destination. And everything's taken care of. So their trip cost includes their airfare, lodging, transportation. We have a big charter bus, our tour director, and everything that we're going to do. Entrances to museums, if we go to castles or whatever we're going to be doing.
Food and
it includes 2 meals a day. So typically students are on their own for lunch. We always make sure we incorporate free time. We tell the kids to stay in groups. We're always in touristic areas. Stay in groups and be with someone that has an international plan for their phone, so that we can kind of.
Is there an age limit on how the kids can be before they can go?
We prefer kids that are like, we'll let 7th, 8th graders go, but we want their parents to be there. So we allow adults. Some group leaders won't let parents go because there can tend to be some problems with parents that think it's like a vacation. No, you're on a student trip.
Yeah.
Bro,
it's a learning trip.
Yeah, you're on a student trip. Well, what if I don't want to go to the Vatican? Okay, well then you probably need to stay home. These trips are geared towards students, so everything's pretty much set up for us. There are extra excursions. For instance, on my first trip, one of our excursions was the Roman catacombs, where we went through a church and then down in the ground to where people were buried.
Wow.
And in order to get there, we had to drive under what used to be the Roman wall for the Roman city limits. And then we were in Greece, we had a Greek night. We were basting plates and eating traditional Greek food, and the kids were up singing songs like from Mamma Mia and stuff like that.
That's fun.
And then we always end up with some free time where we can do our own things. So like when we were in Ireland, we went to the Blarney Castle and kissed the Blarney Stone. That was pretty cool. But then we had free time, and so we went toward the Guinness factory in Dublin. And let's see, this year we're doing our Northern Italy food and culture trip. We have a cooking class, Piedmont cooking class. And all of our travelers are signed up for that. We're at the point to where on our trips, any excursions we do, we make it mandatory that they go. So we've done Windsor Castle in London. The Blarney Stone, the Blarney Castle was really good. We went to Pompeii one day. That was awesome.
Oh, I really want to go there.
Yeah, you would like it. It was hot that day.
The whole story
of it is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. When you walk up into what was the main courtyard of the marketplace, Vesuvius is in the background.
Is this like a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah? Well, not modern day, but
it kind of was because it was the vacation destination for all the wealthy people in Western Europe. A daughter of the Medici family was there when it exploded and died. And the Medicis, people don't understand. The Medici family, in modern day dollars, there is no wealth equivalent today They would have made Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos look like poor people.
I think Putin does that too. I think Putin's worth close to $1 trillion.
The Medicis, like, literally are responsible for the Renaissance.
Wow.
They sent so many artists to the Catholic Church in Rome, to the Vatican, to do work. Raphael. I've seen Raphael's work. So in the Pantheon, Raphael's buried there. So when you walk in, if you're not paying attention, you miss his tomb. It's like right here. Because I wasn't paying attention, and I looked down, and there's a sign.
What year was that?
I was there. We were there in...
No, Raphael?
Oh, I don't... You're asking me years. Remember, I'm a history
Oh,
teacher
yeah, that's
that
right.
don't know dates.
Oh, man. Well, what was one of your favorite trips? How many have you
Spain.
done first?
I've done 4. This will be 5 this summer. And then we're doing Mediterranean coast next summer, and then Italy and Greece again the summer after that.
So Spain?
Yeah, Spain. Oh, man. I love Barcelona. Because in France, we did France and Spain that year, and we got train travel. We got to travel by train from Paris down to Barcelona. So that was like a 5.5 hour, 6 hour drive. And it was awesome.
15, 20.
Yeah. He was only 37.
Wow.
Died on Good Friday.
15, 20.
He was the one of the originators of perspective and being able to paint and making objects in the background looking 3-dimensional.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, back to Spain.
So, yeah, we went to Park Güell in Spain. That was originally a housing development for the wealthy, but it was so far away from the resources that people needed. It's now a park. We saw the Olympic Stadium. We did, what else did we do in Barcelona? We saw a flamenco dancing. Man, just Barcelona was awesome. We had a great tour director. We saw the Sagrada Cathedral. It's next level. Amazing.
How do you spell
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And what year?
Sagrada, S-A-G-R, yeah, Sagrada Familia.
Oh, wow.
Look at the stained glass.
That's insane.
Yeah, we were in there, and it's an active church, so there are people in there worshiping. And so the look at the oval, those are the apostles.
These?
Yeah, the oval. Yeah, those are the apostles.
Wow.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing.
Is that real?
Mm-hmm. That's real.
It looks like out of a Disney movie.
So there's
I don't think I've ever seen this.
There's engravings that depict the life of Christ on the outside of the church, from the killing of the firstborn to his crucifixion and resurrection on the back of the church. Let's take a break real quick so I can go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's real. And there's a park nearby with like a reflecting pool. So before we went there, we went to eat. We had squid ink paella.
Dude, how tall is that?
It's pretty tall. And it's
Is this just like are they rehabbing it here?
Yeah.
It looks like it's...
I think what they told us, what our tour director was Tom that year. We've had Tom a second time. We had him this past summer. He's from Michigan who lives in Madrid. He told us that there's been active construction on this church since it began.
Okay, I know what you're talking. I've heard of this place.
And look in the background. Look at the.
I remember it's been a work in progress from the very beginning.
Look at the ocean in the background, because you're not far from the coast. Because Barcelona's it's a coastal city. And then look up Park Güell when you get a chance.
I'm gonna come over here real quick. Let's go.
Yeah, look up Sagrada. And it's cool to see the kids' reaction when they're there. Because we had a couple of Catholics with us. We had a couple of Catholics with us when they walked in the church. They were crying. Absolutely crying. Well, there it is.
Boing. I love Google Earth.
Yeah, you would not want to jump in that pool where the water is. Yeah, see how green that water is?
Sorry.
It's kind of...
Yikes. Kind of looks like our neighborhood pond right now.
Yeah.
I got a drone shot of it the other day when I was getting some pictures.
So when you walk into the Sagrada and you look at the engravings that are on the outside, it's showing the killing of the firstborn.
Mm.
And so, of course, at this point, I'm still not in my faith walk. But I noticed it, and somebody was like, "Man, what are those soldiers doing?" I said, "They're killing the firstborn." I said, "The story that the church tells the story of Christ, and it depicts, his youth and growing up, and then when you exit out the back, it was kind of hard to see because they had scaffolding up, but when you exit out the back, is the crucifixion.
Is that the front?
I think it is. You see the crucifixion and his resurrection. I think it's...
Golly, look at that.
And we were there mid-afternoon, so the sun was setting, and the pictures I have of the sun through the stained glass, and there were people in there worshiping, there were people in there praying, and there was some singing going on. It is literally one of the coolest...
Looks like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest buildings I've ever been in my entire life. And so imagine going from this to going to a cathedral in Dublin that's dark.
Yeah.
And doesn't have this.
Imagine going from this to like Target in a strip
tile.
mall. It's just literally a box.
Yeah.
With a red bullseye on it.
It is.
What happened to us?
I don't know. I mean,
architecture got lazy, I guess.
Well, it's also, and this is what I've noticed about our kids that go on these trips is when they come back, they're so much more grounded. Yeah. They're more mature. Things don't bother them nearly as much as they used to. Yeah, there's a crucifixion right there. See it right there in the middle?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. And then there's another image. See there, he's carrying the cross.
Yeah.
And then there's another image of Mary and them at the tomb and the resurrection. It is, and the details on these carvings.
Wow.
Is absolutely mind-blowing. And to know that just like regular people did those. The artist. While we were there in Barcelona, we did a bicycle tour. And we went into a park that was being converted to a memorial for the people who were killed during the Inquisition. Because we were sitting there and the kids were like, "Coach, what's going on?" I said, "Well, they're telling us about the Inquisition." They go, "What happened?" I said, "What happened here?" So what they do is they would judge them, and they bring them out and do punishment right here where we're at, behind that fence. Well, were they guilty? I go, most times not.
It depends.
They go, what was their sin? I go, not being Catholic.
Oh, it's crazy.
And they're like, I'm not Catholic. I go, well, go take your spot over there.
Yeah,
kind of joke around.
Go on the other side of that fence.
It gives me an opportunity to like teach about history as we're there, but it's fun to watch the kids. It's fun to watch the kids' reaction when they see these things. When you see kids going in the back, we had a couple of Catholics that were there at the Vatican, and we're just amazed. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" And you can buy holy water at the shops in the Vatican City that have been blessed that day. And then when you walk outside the Sistine Chapel, there's a fountain there. They have public fountains in Rome with really good water.
I don't understand that.
Huh?
I don't understand buying holy water.
No, I did fill up I didn't have this. I had a different Arctic, but I filled it up with water. I was like, I feel like I need as much help as I can get. And it was good. I mean, and then we walked out into the plaza, and we looked up to where the Pope usually addresses the crowd. They were prepping for the Pope was not at the Vatican that day, but we knew he was close by because the Swiss guards were in full striped dress.
We should do an episode on the Crusades one day.
I think we should. The Crusades are...
we could make a series since we're
the Crusades are a very interesting discussion topic. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. We talked about it in our EP World History class. I have to tell my kids, my students, I know y'all like me going off on tangents. You like me going down that road, but we have content to cover. So if I start going down there, give me the glazed over look. That's the signal to shut up and move on. So
That's
we can
the
get
signal,
to our,
coach.
So we can get to our stuff. Look up Park Gruel on the map. Park Gruel is literally one of the coolest places. You feel like you're in a gingerbread village. And again, if it wasn't for Rob, I would not have been able to get to see this stuff. Yeah, look at that. Look at the tile.
Wow.
Yeah, look at that. And that right there goes all the way around the upper part. Keep scrolling through the pictures. That's not even the coolest part. See, it looks like a gingerbread village. Look at that.
Mm. So tell me about this place.
So this was supposed to be a housing development, well, way back then for the wealthy, but it was so far away from resources, like from shopping, everything. It just sat there vacant for a long time, and then the city of Barcelona took it over and made it a park, and now it's a major tourist destination. You don't go to Barcelona without going to Park Güell. Look at the work on that. I guess that's a bridge.
Those are all stone.
Yeah, it's stone.
And they don't even fit together.
Mm-mm.
I guess they're.
And when you look at it in person, it is.
Wow.
So breathtaking. We were there on a clear day. It was a little warm that day. Yeah, look at that.
Thanks for the pictures, Google Maps.
Yeah,
So,
look at that.
Tim Shrink.
Yeah, we walked along that pathway. People were huddled up underneath there because it was hot. Yeah, there's that. We saw that. I think I have a picture of that mosaic in my phone.
And then we get like McDonald's going to a gray box. Just it.
And
McDonald's is now a gray box.
Yeah, and people get
with
excited.
A yellow M on it.
People get excited to go look at fish at Cabela's. I'm
yeah.
like, okay, well, it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's cool, but
it ain't cool like
that.
It ain't that cool. Although I will say,
look at that, the chameleon.
That place up in Mueller, the new development up there where the Children's Museum is. Mm-hmm. There's some cool stuff out there like this.
Was that the Thinkery or
area across the street from the Thinkery?
Yeah. See stuff, and we walked down those steps, and those steps are pretty steep. They're pretty steep, and they're not super wide.
It would be cool if we could go back to building things like this.
I mean, it's just things like that, and when you get to expose teenagers to think the teenagers
we should be making building
it.
art.
Yeah.
You know? It really does. It leaves, especially
look at that
when you build it like this and it stays around for centuries.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing about being over there. You're walking around in buildings that were built in the 14 and 1500s.
It's living art.
When we were
the stuff
we did a bus tour of Dublin. So,
that balcony.
The Guinness family is very well regarded there in Dublin. So we took a bus tour of Dublin, and we went outside the city center. And as we're driving around, we get to this park. It's a massive park that used to be the hunting land for the aristocracy, for the upper class. And the Guinness family purchased it and gave it to the city. That's what we were told. And it is super cool.
What's it called?
That's a good question. Maybe it's Phoenix Park. I don't know. That sounds about right. Yeah, that's it. We drove by that. Yeah.
Nice.
That was the hunting grounds for the upper class.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah. Only the wealthy could go there. And it's just.
Now they got giraffes.
Yeah, so seeing these things and being able to show, it's like when I do presentations on our trips that we're going to, if it's places we've been to before, I use pictures that I've taken.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have pictures, Rob sends me pictures so that we can show the kids that we've been there. Yeah, look at those deer.
Mm-hmm.
We show them these places. Like last year, we were in Munich. We went to the Marienplatz,
Mm-hmm.
to church that has the little miniatures, and they're automated and everything. And then foolishly, we went up to the top of a 350 step tower that Tom paid for. He's like, no, it'll be all right. About a third of the way up, I'm hating him. I'm regretting life because we had just got done at the Hofbrau.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's not good.
no,
Worked that off.
full of pretzels and schnitzel and a couple of deals of beer, and we're walking up to the top. And Tom's ahead of me. He turns around, and I'd
It's more than Mount Benel.
I'd prep myself, to be in better shape. Tom turns around. He goes, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm about to throw you down these stairs, bro."
Geronimo.
I said, "This is what you do." So we've become friends with Tom. Rob and I have. We communicate with him through the WhatsApp. We talk all the time. And I go, "This is what you do. You offer to pay for it, so that we're going to go and we're all excited about it. And then we get a third of the way up and we're dog cussing you. We're so mad at you." I said, "I'm not buying you any more drinks the rest of the trip." He goes, "Yeah, you will." I go, "I will." But we get to the top and it's worth it. I mean, and he told us, he goes, "It'll be worth it." He goes, "I promise it'll be worth it." And you have great views of the city of Munich. Because leading up to this, we'd been to Dachau that morning. And then it's super somber. Because you get on the bus and people are like,
Yeah.
like they're processing what they just seen. I'm sitting there, I'm on my phone because I teach it. And then we go into Munich. And we drive by the river surfers there. So that was a good change of pace for the kids and kind of get them back on track. Because the river surfers, I don't know if you've ever seen them.
Mm-mm.
So the river surfers in Munich, it's a discharge from I think it's a power station there. And it kicks up a little surf. So they have
nice.
So they have specially designed surfboards. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that.
That's it right there. Yeah. They have specially designed
Pull that
surfboards.
up, old Jamie.
Yeah, they have specially designed surfboards just for that river. And after that, we saw a building.
There you go.
Yeah, we saw one of the few buildings that's still left that Hitler helped design.
Wow.
It's one of the few buildings in all of Germany that still has visible swastikas on it. And it's a museum now. Yeah, that's cool, isn't it?
That's fun.
And so there's tons of people down there watching, and there's tons of people down there surfing in downtown Munich. And then we went to the Hofbrau, did some shopping, and then walked up those stairs. Freaking
Nice.
Tom.
So this is what I'm excited about. You doing a podcast because I get to learn about this kind of stuff too. That I'd never heard of the Munich river surfers.
I'd heard about it, but never thought I'd ever get to see it. I mean, it is. Again, I'm so thankful to Rob, and I enjoy. We're both foodies, so we enjoy traveling together. We're pretty even keeled. We're not aggressive with our kids. We don't like, you need to be here, because we were in the airport in Germany getting ready to leave. We were in Frankfurt, and another student group was coming by, and she goes, y'all can stop here for a little bit, and they were in there for like a minute, and she's out there yelling, y'all hurry up, and I told the kids, I'm like, is that y'all's group leader? And they go, yes. I go, you tell Stalin to calm down out there. And they were like, you mean like Joseph Stalin? I said, yeah. They go, are you a group leader? I said, yeah. Where are your kids? I don't know. We told them that you need to be at the gate by this time. Can we just come with you? I said,
right?
No, you can't.
I'm not responsible for you.
Yeah. And I felt bad for them. I said, I bet y'all's trip's been fun. And they just looked at me and they're like this. They rolled their eyes. You have some group leaders that are like super aggressive and try to plan out every single minute. So on the Facebook group, there's people that ask questions like this lady posted the other day. We have a 4-hour layover in Paris on the way home. What can I get the kids to do? I'm like, less is more. Don't do anything. They're going to be tired. You've been on a trip. Just let them explore the airport. well, is it a good airport to explore? And I said, it seemed fine to me when we landed there. And this one lady goes, no. And I go, don't listen to her. I said, it's a fine airport.
You only got 4 hours.
Yeah, you can go in there. You can find croissants. You can find macaroons. You can find your food. You can do some duty free shopping.
Mm-hmm.
People, man, don't over people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overdo it.
I think
like
that
people want to arrange karaoke on the bus on their bus drives. Let people sleep.
That kind of takes us back to the when we were kids. We didn't have as many options.
No.
And we didn't have to fill our time up with
and
every single minute. We could be literally riding in circles, waiting for the street light to come on. Just riding around the block, just waiting to get that last 10 minutes before you knew you had to go home.
When the street lights come on, you better be home.
Yep.
These people are like, well, I thought we would arrange for karaoke on the long bus rides. I made a comment one time, if I'm on a bus in Europe, and karaoke starts, I'm throwing the microphone out the window.
Or me. One of us is going out the window.
You and the microphone. I don't want to hear people singing. They're teenagers. They want to listen to their music and let them sleep. Because not everybody wants to hear you catfighting up there on that microphone. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to listen to your music. I listen to worship music. I don't want to listen to rap. Are you kidding me? I don't want to listen to Kanye West and do no karaoke. Now, when we have Tom usually brings his little travel guitar and we'll go in the back of the bus and play and sing with them, but we can't hear it up front. We always have a good time, though. It's a vacation, and, look at the snow on the ground.
Man, that's cold.
They're out there. The water's cold, That's aggressive right there. I would probably drown in that water. I have to have a life vest and floaties on.
My first reaction was that's Photoshopped. And then I look at it more and I'm like, no,
that's
they're
real.
Actually doing that.
Uh-huh.
That's too funny.
It's cool to get to see stuff like that. And for the kids to get to see it, because a lot of the students have never even heard of this. Mm-hmm. And they're like, man, they're surfing in downtown Munich. I go, yeah. Yeah.
Just take turns.
Yeah, they just take turns. And again,
I mean, they made these out here in Austin, Del Valley area.
Yeah, that place shut down.
I thought they were going to reopen it.
I don't know.
That's a different
I think
one.
the people that lived around it were complaining because of flooding.
Oh, I believe it.
It flooded over. And
I have a drone shot of it, all vacant.
Area out there floods. I enjoy. Someone asked me about traveling with kids, and I always tell them this story. So this last summer, some friends of mine that I know through real estate, Melissa Ashcraft, she lives up in Fort Worth with her husband Tracy, and when I posted a link about this trip, she asked me, and full disclosure, I'm like, we travel with teenagers, so I'm just letting you know when everything's regimented, everything's planned out. And she goes, we would love to go. I said, well, we fly out to San Antonio. We didn't know at the time that we were going to be flying to DFW, and then from DFW to Frankfurt, because they could have just met us at the airport. Anyway, they drove down to San Antonio. They had a rental car, and they were like, yeah, we're good with that. It's the first trip they've made outside the country since their honeymoon in Jamaica. And she told me, she goes, we planned it. We planned our honeymoon. She goes, it was horrible, Daryl. Absolutely horrible. And she goes, we ended up in some scary places and stuff, so we haven't gone. And they go, this is our anniversary trip. I think it's like 35th anniversary. And so we get over there, and their friends had kind of given them a hard time about going, because it's kids and stuff. And they actually enjoyed being around the kids.
That's good.
And we were in a hotel in Munich, and we were downstairs at the bar having some drinks, and I saw them sitting there, and I said, that was her husband's, one of his favorite parts of the day was trying new beers and food and stuff. I said, are y'all having a good time? And they looked at me and was like, we're having the best time. We are enjoying this. We love being around the kids. She goes, and they are so nice to us. They are being so nice. Well, and then when we got free time, there's a Viva Stadium, yeah. And when they got free time, they got into places. I think they got into some places that weren't necessarily open to the public. I know there's a town in Germany. They went into a church and they got pictures inside that church. So when we got free time, they went off on their own and did their own thing, which was more than okay. And they had the best time. And they're going on our Mediterranean coast trip next summer. They're hooked. And we have a couple other adults that are going to be doing the same thing because they're hooked and they don't mind going with kids.
That's good.
Because when the kids do their things, like if we go off somewhere and there's a couple of kids.
Well, it gives the kids that wouldn't normally be able to do that stuff an experience. If their parents can't take them.
Yeah, we had a kid on our Ireland, Scotland, England trip. Didn't meet $1 that he wouldn't spend on souvenirs. He went to the Lego shop in London and bought like this massive Star Wars deal. He had to buy suitcases to get his stuff back. I don't know that his mom was all that happy, but he went on our trip last year. He didn't spend as much.
But you can say he bought Legos in England.
Yeah, he bought a kilt set and wore it to school.
Mm-hmm.
Brennan
is
my
kind of guy right there.
Brennan he moves to the beat of his own drum and he doesn't care what people think.
That's good.
He's
kind of how I was too.
Very intelligent. Enjoyed talking about the history of beer brewing. And he's an acquired taste, but he's an amazing young man. He's very smart. He's not going on our trip this summer, but he has been on 2 of our trips. But yeah, he bought a white cape this past summer in Germany and wore it to school, and I think he got a little bit in trouble for it because I think he looked a little clannish.
Oh, whoops!
When he was
maybe not the white one or the red one.
Yeah.
Well, the red you could pass off as Superman, I guess. But maybe go black.
I'm already prepping kids, so we already have our Facebook group for this summer's trip. And I need to talk to Rob about it because I think I'm over-posting. I'm posting stuff as I have this stuff pop up on my Facebook feed.
Mm-hmm.
I've been posting things from like Verona, Florence, Rome, Bologna, and all the places we're going to be in this summer because we were in Verona last summer. And on our Facebook group to kind of give a preview. And I'm already telling some of my students, I'm like, look, Coach, I love Italian food. Okay, where's your favorite place? Olive Garden. That's not Italian. That's American.
It didn't say Fazoli's.
No. That's why I'm excited about Amici coming back. Amici's pretty authentic. They're Sicilian.
I haven't had their food yet.
So when they come back, or if you ever out there in the Wine Oak Hill, go to the brick and mortar there and get their bolognese. Their bolognese is as good as what you can find in Bologna. Their mac and cheese is okay. It's not authentic Italian mac and cheese, in my opinion.
It's not 4 cheese mac and cheese?
No. It's good, but it's not like what I had in gnocchi. The potato-based pasta is always good. But their food is delicious. Yeah, I've warned the kids, like, Italian food is not what you think it is. So if we get over there and you end up not liking the food, you need to tell us because we can arrange for alternates. Because we had kids on that first trip. They're like, oh, I love Italian food. And we get over there and it's not the same. It's not drowned in sauce. And it's typically made fresh.
Fresh is key. Fresh, not frozen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if it's pre-made, as long as it's been air dried the right way.
And just real ingredients. And,
yeah.
Not chemical ingredients.
Now, this trip that we're going on is one that Rob and I picked specifically for food. We're being a little bit selfish on this one. We're disappointed.
Well, you get to do that, right?
And we're disappointed that there's no train travel on this trip.
No.
We like the trains.
Yeah.
So
trains fun.
Trains are a lot of fun, especially in Europe. You get to see a lot of the country. Traveling from Paris to Barcelona, going through the southern countryside of France was amazing. And then from Barcelona to Madrid. I think Madrid is oftentimes a very underrated destination. Madrid's an amazing, amazing city.
Have you been in that underground?
The Channel? No.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Does it go from Ireland to?
It goes
England?
from France to England. It's funny because when we left Paris on the train, we had some kids that thought we were going to the English Channel. I was like, "Yo, fools, we're going south, man." But just look at where these countries are. They're like right next to each other.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Belgium. Rob has. I haven't been to the Netherlands. Switzerland's awesome. Austria's pretty cool. We were in Innsbruck.
So much history, man.
Mm-hmm. We went to Venice. Not a favorite. But we'll be in Monaco next summer. We'll be in Milan, Turin. No, Turin's this summer. We'll be in Milan. Then we go down to Cinque Terre, and then we hit Monaco, the French Riviera, Nice, Monaco. Where the Monaco Grand Prix is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we head over to Barcelona, Spain. We finish up there.
Wow, that'll be pretty.
I'm pumped about that, and hoping we get a little bit of train travel. Yeah, there's Nice right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be cool to be at the French Riviera, and
yeah,
I don't know about what other people think, but to me, Monaco has always been a destination where I've wanted to go because growing up, Formula One wasn't shown in the U.S. On ABC,
right?
The Wild World of Sports, and the only time they ever showed it was the Monaco Grand Prix, because it was
that's the only one I remember.
Premier destination race.
Yeah.
And now we have F1 out here at the track.
You remember when they did the Dallas Grand Prix?
Mm-hmm.
And they took over streets in downtown
right there, Reunion Tower, and
made a racetrack out of it.
And they jacked everything up. Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
That was a long time ago.
That was in the 80s? That was in the 80s? Was that 84? Was 84, 85 the last time they had the last Dallas Grand Prix?
Maybe.
1984.
1984?
Yeah. I'm shocked I was right. I got a year right.
I thought it was 80s. I was 12. Yeah.
It says, has F1 ever been in Dallas? Yes, but the 1984 Dallas Grand Prix left a searing impression on Formula One as a lesson on how not to host a race.
Didn't they do it in Los Angeles again, too, or something? And
I think so.
Another street race like that where they blocked off streets.
Well, remember when they moved over to Indy, they built a street course at Indy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was, year 3? The drivers boycotted. They wouldn't drive because there were issues with the speed and the tires. And
yep.
It's always something. And then that's whenever I think they changed their rules to where it had to be an F1 approved course. And that's why
they built
they built this one out here to bring
nice.
F1. So I honestly believe that if it wasn't for COTA, F1 racing wouldn't have as many stops in North America. Because what it showed is there's a
they added
an
Las
interest.
Vegas,
and in Canada,
another one.
Well, they've had Canada, but they added they added Mexico City, and now here in the United States they have Miami, they have Las Vegas. Because I remember when they were talking about the one here at COTA, New York, upstate New York was another possibility.
Oh yeah, that's right. And we won out.
And now out there at COTA, they're building that amusement park.
Miami.
Yeah, Miami. Held since 2012. Man, 13 years.
Yep. And Vegas. So yeah, Vegas and Miami.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton likes the Austin track.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Austin.
It's Del Valley, right?
Yeah.
The old stomping ground.
Yeah.
Have they not annexed it yet? I figured they would annex that.
I don't know if they have or not. I do know. I'm shocked that Del Valley still doesn't have an HEB out there.
I thought it was coming.
They've been talking about that for 15, 20 years.
I heard they were building one.
It's a massive food desert out there.
Yeah.
So that's other stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm kind of like
we
my
could
mom.
go on for hours. But
I'm kind of like my mom has a store of lots of knowledge in her. She could win Jeopardy, but she'd probably be like Cliff Clavin and freeze up at the final Jeopardy.
Cliff Clavin.
I love my mom. She's awesome. She told me last night, I was talking to him, and, they got that Roku now. My dad's like, yeah, your mom's been watching Ironside. She goes, I don't think that speaker button's working for me. Because whenever I say Ironside, it doesn't register. I said, yeah, because you say Ironside. You have to enunciate.
Ironside.
Ironside.
Nope. Still doesn't have one yet. As of January 29th.
Yeah, she said, we had to find it the other day. We had to look up Perry Mason. So they're navigating their way with the Roku.
Yeah.
But I've got some, I think if I can get on some weekend, if Eileen's in town, she would be good to talk to about Avid, because we do have a large number of students in schools that if they went to college would be first generation.
Mm-hmm.
Be first generation college student. And I hate to admit this, as a public school teacher, we are not doing a good enough job in preparing our kids for school.
Right.
For college, we're preparing our kids to take tests.
Yeah.
And even less to the point about preparing kids for trades. We don't focus enough on trades.
Right.
But these people that want to post this stuff on Facebook, bring back shop and tech programs. The shop classes never left.
Mm-hmm.
We still have welding. We still have ag. We still have all those.
No money's being pulled from them?
Well, in some schools they are. But like where I work, we don't have an auto tech program. That's shocking to me. I've had kids in the auto tech program end up going to UTI, and when they get out, they're 20 years old, and they're making $85,000 a year starting out. Yeah,
within 5 years they're making six figures.
Yeah, and with those programs, if you go to UTI and you have student loans, they bring in, and you're getting ready to graduate, they bring these companies in to hire you, and part of their agreement to be able to be brought in is they have to pay off your student loans.
Yep. It's a brokerage.
Yeah, and then
brokering jobs. That's how in demand they are.
Yeah,
Mike Rowe talks about it all the time.
Yeah, and then you work for that company for a certain number of years so they can get their investment back, and then a lot of them just end up staying there. Yeah, because I couldn't work on my car. You kidding me? I'm not touching anything.
Kirk helped me change my alternator the other day, and by help I mean he changed it while I held the light.
I'm not surprised by that.
And I held the rent.
Kirk is a renaissance man. He can do a little bit of everything. I
was back on the road and at my 12 o'clock appointment with 4 minutes to spare.
He does it with such a good heart.
It was good hanging out with him. I was like, man, I just got to hang out with you. That was fun.
I tell people, they're like, who are some of the best people you know? Man, that's a long list. Kirk's at the top.
Yeah,
he's
just one of the good ones.
We could clone him.
Yeah,
he just has a heart for God, and he's just a good man. Yeah, I love watching him at church.
We got some good guys there.
More so than most places that I've seen, that I've been a part of.
Well, let's talk about your podcast coming up.
Let's do.
What do you want to talk about on your podcast? We still got to figure out a name for it.
I don't know. I kind of like the name you have.
You like that one?
Yeah, I do.
Class Dismissed?
Yeah, so I'm sitting there last night watching Duck Dynasty reruns and watching my dogs wrestle over ropes and thinking, what else could could it be?
When you were talking, I had something else. Travel. Travel could be another one that I didn't have on that list. But like you could bring some of the people in you've traveled with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I could bring Rob up here.
Yeah.
Rob has some good stories.
And we got the education stuff coming up with Ashley and Terry.
Yeah. I'm excited about doing that because, and as I've talked about with other people, it's hard to argue against what the governor and lieutenant governor are trying to do when we're not doing a very good job of what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Not saying that private schools will do better, but if you don't want people criticizing what you're doing, get better at what you do. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of like the Class Dismissed because it opens up for us to talk about the school stuff and things outside of school.
I need to find that link to that.
I mean, it's
on here.
To be able to talk about There's Kirk right there. The man, the myth, the legend.
Where did I put that thing?
I enjoyed the softball stuff because they touch on a lot of things that teachers deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, the kids are the same. They have different pressures. The parents are different.
Yeah.
And I will go ahead and say it. School administrators are different.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the statistic where the graph where the line went up for bureaucrat administrative positions in education, while the teachers' line stayed like this. So they were hiring 10 times as many bureaucrats as they were teachers.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem.
And you have people going into
that's like typical.
You have people
government
going into
bloat right now.
You have people going into administration after only teaching for 3 years, 3 or 4 years. They don't have enough time in the classroom to be able to address issues, and you don't have coaches going into administration anymore. The people that know how to build relationships really, really well. So I'm anxious to, with the stuff that I've talked to other kids about at other schools, kind of present that to Terry and Ashley. Because, I mean, a question I would have for Ashley is, what would it take for you to put your kids back into school?
That's a really good question.
And Terry, what would it take for you to alleviate your concerns about your daughter going to middle school?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there is an answer for that for him.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I like how he went back on someone. He was like, I have actually met Daryl in person. We've actually met.
Yeah, man. You know, that community page, I don't mind talking about it on here because I hope some of those people do watch this podcast. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people on there that are just trying to berate their point and to beat you down until you agree with them on both sides. There are people on both sides doing it, and everybody knows on that page who they are. You don't have to. But there's people like Terry that come along, or even you come along, and just ask a question to try to spark a conversation to get to communicating about it instead of, hey, this is what I think is right and this is what I think you should do because I think you should do it this way.
Right.
Instead of berating people and hammering your point over and over and over again about whatever the issue may be, people aren't changing their mind on there, but they're still bickering back and forth the same way.
Yeah, it's easy to figure out the people that won't change their mind. But one thing I do disagree that Terry said was about the comments about you couldn't come in and do what I do.
Yeah,
challenging people. I think that's a very legitimate argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because, all right, Russell Hader, come do what I do for a week.
Right.
Dan Patrick, Greg Abbott, come do what I do for a week at the level I do it at. Even on days where I'm not feeling well and I'm still in there teaching, or when I'm dealing with stuff in my life, like recently, and I show up Monday after spring break and I'm teaching and starting a new unit about global conflicts, and I'm doing my best to be on my game because my students depend on me. Yeah. Come do that. Or even to the point, could I do what you do as former Republican county chair? Probably.
It's not that they can't do it. Like anybody, you give them a little heads up, they can figure out how to teach a class real quick if they have to.
Could they do what teenagers?
It's just they don't want to because they think they're above it, and they don't think that's for y'all to do, which is this whole hierarchy of
I'm better than that.
I got voted in for this, or so I got appointed for this position, so I get to make the decisions for what I think are best for you. Yeah. Even though I don't even know what you do or how you do it, I still get to make that decision for you. And I mean, unfortunately, that's how government and politics work, but how do we get those people out,
Right. And, if we're going to
vote them out,
and there needs to be accountability on all levels, like if I'm held accountable for my students' performance on AP exam, then again, if you're the Republican Party chair, shouldn't you be held accountable for the number of Democrats taking over office in Hayes County?
Yeah. Did he
When
ever
it-
answer for that?
No.
I didn't think so.
Well, I'd put something on.
Maybe he'll come on your podcast and you and Russell can.
I've offered
talk about some
I've
stuff.
offered to meet Russell a couple of times, and he never addresses that. I've
Mhm.
offered to talk to him.
Has he ever gone on any podcast?
No. Because he is a true politician. He will not be put into a position that
He's a
he feels
sniper.
like that he could be compromised. He likes
He's
to,
a sniper.
He's a guerrilla warfare tactic guy. He likes to hit when he can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at his personal Facebook page, he doesn't post a lot. He posts in these community forums.
Right.
And he says he's not attacking public education, but yet you are. You're a shill. You're a shill for the Republican Party and what they're trying to do, which is fine. You know, but have an opinion yourself.
Yeah.
And he has a degree in economics. I would love to sit down and talk to him about economics. But
Russell, you're invited.
yeah, but I don't think he would show up. I think he would think he was being ambushed. But I think it's important to show people you can have civil conversations about.
I'm not
hot
doing
button
any of
topics.
this stuff to ambush people.
No.
The whole point of Go Talk Texas is to get people to talk.
I'm not
ambush and fight and argue about things.
Yeah,
but you're never going to get anything resolved, anything done if you can't bring two sides together to talk about it. And I think that's being done more often now. But people just need a place to do it, and a place where they feel like they can do it safely and not.
Well, and the guys have talked about it. You know, Jason and those guys on their podcast. You know, about having been able to have civil conversations without people getting all offended and butthurt, and cause people to think and maybe, you know, have a better understanding.
And the problem with that page and other pages like it is that that's all people do is just snipe and get butthurt.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Nothing gets resolved. It's it's basically a billboard for here's my opinion versus here's your opinion.
It's like they're
Who cares? I don't care if that's your opinion. I don't care if that's your opinion. I know if your opinion and my opinion might affect us differently, but where are we going to find the common ground in the middle to not continue to fight over this? Because they want us to continue to fight over this.
Oh yeah, you know, house divided.
It's been decades of doing it.
It's funny because
nothing gets resolved.
People like to talk about their social media scalps they collect. I told him off. Did you really?
Yeah.
I've had people say that. I've had students say that. Well, I told him off. Did you really tell me off?
Did you really?
Did you really?
It reminds me of this.
Or did you not get what I was saying to you? Did you not comprehend it?
It reminds me of this meme that I saw the other day that I grabbed.
That's me. I'm the guy on the bottom.
That's Terry too, probably.
Yeah, I can see Terry being that way 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's definitely him.
Yeah.
Or he's typing something, and before he hits post, he's like this. Post. And then he leaves it, and then he comes back like 30 minutes later.
Yeah, it worked.
Not that people see it because they all blocked him.
I wonder what his block list looks like.
Oh, man. I guarantee you there's people. I've had a couple people ask me, hey, man, I see you on that HCIC forum. Man, doesn't that Terry guy just rub you the wrong way? I said, no more than you do. I mean,
right?
No, Terry doesn't rub me the wrong way.
If you know what he's doing, if you know Terry and you know what he's doing, then it shouldn't rub you the wrong way.
I told him, I said,
he's just trying to incite some conversation.
He is literally like a really good debate teacher. He's trying to elicit conversation and get you to think about things.
Because if people don't think about them, then one side gets to do whatever they want and run roughshod over the other side, and then the other side goes, "Hey, wait a minute."
Yeah.
Well, while you weren't looking because you were being divided about stuff or you weren't paying attention, this side just did whatever the heck they wanted to.
Well, think about it.
So deal with it.
He's pretty.
Or you can ask questions and make people talk.
Yeah, he's pretty ingenious the way he does it, because just when people start to think they got him figured out, he switches it up. And he'll post something so totally opposite of what
Yeah.
he's been talking about beforehand.
Yeah, I think Terry's kind of like me. We're borderline libertarian in our views. Like, just government needs to get the heck out of the way and let the people govern themselves, kind of thing. But you still need, fire department, police department. You still need, regulations for safety. You don't want people dying on the road because there's no stop sign.
Right. It's
or
like
somebody ran over your stop sign and nobody fixed it.
It's kind of somewhat of how republics are supposed to work.
Right.
They work according to the will of the people.
But but like you said, I see him switch it up sometimes too, and I'm like, oh, right. Not a completely conservative Republican view on that.
And that's how Dr. Rudolph was in college.
Makes you think.
He would present.
It's just critical thinking.
When you thought you had Dr. Rudolph figured out, he would say something in class to get you to think about it in a different way. Which I always enjoyed that about his class. And graduating in 1989, teachers in school could focus on Socratic thinking. To where you had to think for yourself. And before you just spurt out an answer, you're like...
Right. We need to bring that back.
Yeah. Just get rid of testing. So we can teach that way. That's why I've enjoyed teaching AP World History this year, because I'm teaching to the College Board's AP exam.
Along that lines, are these with charter schools and private schools? They don't have to teach to those tests, right? They can teach Socratic methods of teaching. I think we were talking about that with Valor, right?
And you don't have to be a certified teacher to work there. You can work at a private school and not have a degree. You can be a teacher. You just have to show proficient knowledge of the subject.
Right.
So, like, if there's a class about the Book of Matthew, I read the Book of Matthew all my life. I know it front and back. Not have a degree in theology or a degree.
You just know the facts. Yeah. You just know the information.
Which I think is dangerous.
You don't know the reasons why behind the information.
I think one of the biggest issues, especially, I've been to private college school, for college with Church of Christ, and you're not able to teach everything you're supposed to be teaching. But I told the kids yesterday in my classes, I rarely give my opinion about things we talk about in here. That's not my job. My job is to teach you content. It's to get you to think and come up with your own opinion, because my background is different than yours. And if you ever know my political beliefs, what you know about me is what I allow you to know. But if you have teachers that are teaching their opinion, well, in my opinion, they're not doing it right. I said, now, if you ask me a question and I feel safe, I feel like it's appropriate, are you asking my opinion? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to give you my opinion. But I'm not going to give you everything. I'm going to give you the guarded opinion. But it's not my job to teach you my opinion of what caused World War I or World War II, or my opinion about the Holocaust, or why it's important to learn about the Holocaust. I'm going to teach you about, here's the facts, and you come up, and that's what Dr. Rudolph challenged to do. He goes, teach the kids the truth, teach them the facts, let them come up to their own conclusion. And I said, and chances are, somewhere along the way, you're 16 years old, chances are sometime between 16 and 22, you might change your mind. I have friends of mine that I grew up that were conservative. They're now more moderate and probably be considered somewhat liberal, or they're progressives.
My ideology and beliefs have changed not dramatically, but a lot over the years.
I've drifted away from things that my parents believe in, because they taught me to be my own person. Well, you think things that we didn't, okay, but you also taught me to formulate my own opinion and come to my own conclusions.
Yeah. And I teach history and government, and so I know things that I've learned things along the way that might have changed my opinion significantly.
And work in a
which
profession.
Which is why people need to know their history.
And work in a profession where a lot of people vote against their best interest because of the initial by someone's name. Yeah. Again, history is the most important subject we teach, and one we do the worst job of.
I agree, 100%.
That's why I don't get upset about things that I see in the news. When I watch them, like, oh, yeah, that happened 50, 60, 80, 200, 300 years ago. Yeah.
It used to bother me a lot more but then I quit drinking.
Yeah.
And when all the you just realize what you have control over and what you don't. Like there's a few books over there. The Untethered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
I don't think I have.
But it was I came across it with Troy Aikman on Ed my Let's podcast.
I've started reading this book.
I haven't finished a copy of it actually.
I've started reading this book that the lady that wrote it was a guest. Okay,
I had 2 copies.
There was a guest on Granger Smith's podcast on Monday, and she wrote a book about how progressives have manipulated the empathy of Christians to get away from doctrine and to agree with things that go against doctrine, and how as Christians it's okay to love those people, but don't let progressives convince you to agree with those things.
Right.
So I'm in the process of reading that book. I like Granger Smith's podcast.
I need to check it out.
So his website, he has that Yee apparel stuff. He's introduced faith-based shirts now.
That's good.
He's got one.
He's a worship leader at his church now too, right? And he just quit.
Yeah,
touring.
he's in seminary. So he's got a shirt that 99:4:1. It's based on the scripture. We lead the 99 sheep to save the one.
To save the one.
The shirts are like really cool, and he's even talked about releasing a gospel album soon.
Yep.
Doing one. I liked him.
Dennis Quaid just released a gospel album.
That's shocking.
Can you believe that?
That's surprising. Yeah.
He said it was years in the works.
I enjoyed Granger Smith as a performer. I saw him in concert. I like him even better now.
Yeah.
His book.
It's tragic, man.
His book, Like a River, is an amazing read.
Mm.
Him and his wife are both extremely awesome people. I love his podcast though. So I listen to him every Monday.
Maybe we can get him on your podcast.
That would be a get. To be able to get to meet him would be amazing.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
He didn't live too far.
No, he lives up there outside of Georgetown. He's fixing to have his second annual Yee.
That's how we're having that.
He's going to have
secret.
He's going to have his second Yee deal out at his ranch. He's going to be mud bogging and his band. He's getting his band back together to sing some songs.
Good.
Because he wants his son Maverick to see him play.
Oh.
And they're going to be selling their apparel. I'm glad that he came out with some faith-based apparel. I mean, it's nice. It's some good stuff. I'm going to order me a couple.
Yeah, I think you sent that.
Yeah, I posted on the We Are Vertical page because I know there's some people. I know some of the guys at church are fans of Granger Smith.
I know you shared it in that group the other day.
Yeah,
too.
on the Facebook group. Did I put it in our? I don't think I put it in our group. It's in our. Oh, the Oak Grove. Yeah.
No, that's not on that list for some reason.
Yeah, I posted in the
there
Oak
it is.
Grove deal. Yeah. I don't know who all those guys are, but I like what they post. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I haven't met them all yet either. Chris put me in this group a little while ago.
Yeah, there it is. Yee Apparel. Yeah,
Nice.
Look at that, man. That Shall Prosper shirt and the Fear No Evil. Man, look at that. There's the 99 for one. Look at this Fear No Evil. Man, look at that.
That's nice.
Man, that's a good looking shirt. And it's not overly priced.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the one on the far left here. I like the Christ is King. I like everything on this shirt, on this website. So his brother, yeah, look at the skeletons. Ugh. That's him right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's his son.
That's nice.
That's a good looking T-shirt. They just now he's had this website Yee Apparel for a long time. I think this is the first time they've done faith-based shirts.
Mm-hmm.
They have so many good things. Look at that one's almost sold out. They don't have any medium, large, 2X,
small
3X.
and extra large left.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
And the Christ is King one on the far right is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Another 99 for one. They have women's shirts. Yeah. The Jesus Save shirt. That's a good one.
Whoa. Well, cool. We should probably wrap it up before I have a camera die.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
Super pumped.
It's going to be because I love history, and so this is going to be fun for me too, because I'll get to learn about stuff, and so will people watching. And
yeah, we can bring Brian in a little bit. I think.
Yeah.
Brian's an interesting story.
Yeah, Brian McKinney.
Brian McKinney's
get ready.
Yeah, get ready.
Talking
Brian.
to that camera right there.
Yeah, Brian, get ready. He's an interesting story because he, he sold his business and put the money in the golf course, and the golf course is, the putt-putt course is cool. It's awesome. And now he's doing the turf stuff, which is great, and Rachel's awesome too.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to her. I enjoy talking to both of them. They're good people. But
get Brian in here for some World War II episodes.
Brian
for
World War II and history, and then talk about the transition from having that business to this, and the victories and the struggles, because people think owning your own business is easy. That's crystal. We've talked about it at length about the perception people have of owning your own business, and you know that too.
Yeah.
So you can be able to chime in. I told
Crystal, it's not always glorious for sure. I mean, it's nice to be able to make your own decisions in a way.
Yeah.
But even my dad, when I was a kid, because he owned his own business, and I was like, it must be nice not having to work for anybody. You don't have a boss. And he said, well, your clients are your boss. You're working for them. So if you don't make them happy, then you don't have any work. So that always stuck with me, Yeah. And as long as your clients are happy, then you can still operate your business.
Well, that's, with people I know that own their own business, it's like people always posting in a group, I'm looking for a massage in Buda, at the massage studio. You don't need to go anywhere else. The same thing with you in the real estate photography. I'll throw your name out there all the time, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you.
I have to twist people's arms sometimes. But can send the goons.
Look, his work gets better, and I promise it'll be better this time.
Send the goons out there to get them. But yeah, I'm excited about everything that we're going to end up talking about.
Yeah, that'll be good.
It's going to be good stuff.
Be some good perspectives on that education front that maybe people can at least if they don't take away. We change their mind on anything, at least they'll maybe take away, hey, maybe this is how we can have a discussion about it and not argue, not fight, and not just do it one, because with, texts and comments anyway, you can't hear the person. You can only read it. And so things can be taken out of context really easily. So it's kind of hard to get anything done with having a discussion online. Yeah. So.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming.
No problem at all. Enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Enjoyed it a lot.
We went 3 hours.
Thank goodness for Saturdays, right?